Thanks, Bob. Good evening, everyone. It's a minute after 7. I'll call the meeting to order, and I would ask if anyone's recording, would they make it known? Thank you. There's copies of the agenda on the front table here, if anyone would like one. I will get things moving along. I will table the minutes until later in the meeting. And that brings us to an A&R for S&H Realty.
Good evening. Jamie Anderson here for the record, here to represent my client S&H Realty. To present to you the A&R for the property located on map 87, lots 1000 A1A, 1000 A1B, and 1000 A1C. Property is a total of approximately 25.7 acres, which was subdivided in late 2005. As you can see on the plan there, the boundary is colored green. Denali Drive and the 3 existing parcels are colored in yellow. And the proposed parcel subdivision, which would eliminate the yellow, would be the blue line on the right-hand side. Of course, this is the Walmart site, and on the right-hand side of the site is the out parcel for the Walmart. The purpose of the plan is to take the 3 lots plus Denali Drive and create 2 lots. There will be one will be for the undeveloped parcel, and of course one is for the Walmart. The new out parcel lot will allow for a more dense development with the addition of the open space on the west side of the drive. Located in this area here. There's a zone line that crosses through the site, located kind of right in the middle there, with the industrial zone to the left and the commercial strip zone on the right of the plan. Both of the new parcels will fully comply with the zoning as far as the size and frontage. Of course, there's plenty of size and frontage of 30,000 square feet minimum and 150 lineal feet of frontage. The Walmart in the end parcel will be 21.7 acres, and the out parcel will be approximately 4.0 acres.
Questions?
Where does it go?
This change.
So it disappears.
I believe it's just to create a specific lot for each use. We previously approved a lease line change for the Walmart parcel. I think this is taking the next step to physically separate the two.
That's correct.
Not physically, but
Right.
So the second lot then is towards the right corner is the zigzag property line that comes up.
Up from Toby.
Yep, take a right, go up,
original line up,
Yep.
around, across the street,
and picks up that little thing there.
picks up this piece over here, correct?
Okay. And that wasn't done in the beginning, Mr. Chairman, way back in the day? It wasn't made a second lot? It was leased? It was
A leased parcel.
leased parcel. Yeah.
and that little section over there was added when they moved the lease line. You mentioned that it would allow a more dense development, and I believe the earlier approvals limited the square footage that could be.
That's right, so it wouldn't be any more than the 18,000 square feet, but what we weren't able to do was have impervious area greater than a certain amount. We figured that was what we needed to add to this parcel to make that work. This piece of the overall project was more open space, which is what we're getting across the street now, just for this piece of the overall.
Wasn't that piece used in the calculation for Walmart?
It was, but this does not take Walmart's down below their open space requirement.
Yeah, questions?
Just one. So the proposed lot, though, will be about 4 acres?
Right, yep.
And the verbiage that was previously mentioned was an 18,000-foot building?
18,000 square feet of building had been proposed to both the state and at the local level, yes.
Okay, so,
We would not exceed that number, plus or
that-
minus.
that's
yeah,
fine.
Right.
Leaves you plenty for parking in that area.
Plenty for parking in that area.
Right. You got a building to go there yet?
Not yet, not at the state, no.
It says the purpose is to create Lot 1. Is there a Lot 1 designation somewhere?
So lot one, well, actually, that should be the out parcel, so that, the purpose of the plan is to create the out parcel, which is AKA lot one, and the legal description that will be recorded along with it will have that lot one nomenclature.
Does it say Lot 1 somewhere? Am
I
missing
don't,
it?
I don't, I think, I don't think it does say lot one. It's the out parcel lot.
Zoning requirement?
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
144 feet.
Originally, the entrance that we see here was all part of the lease parcel from Walmart, correct?
The entrance here?
No, the other side that we're working on.
Right,
And that was all previously leased by Walmart
correct.
in their lease. And so you've corrected that language and now you've changed it so that they have,
The language within the agreement would be changed, and that there's still cross-access agreements between the two parcels
yeah.
that would
'Cause
allow.
I see that you've kind of presented an L here to give Walmart some frontage. I just was curious to see how that was handled contractually and
That's, yeah, so that was all handled contractually with, as you mentioned just now.
all
that-
Is that
recorded.
the way it was
Correct.
originally, or was it? See,
There's been several iterations.
yeah, because I see because they originally showed a building there, right? In the previous site plan.
Does Walmart need frontage on Cranberry Highway?
I think it's all on here.
What's the purpose of Walmart's frontage on Cranberry Highway?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. I think it was just the way the line was drawn up.
Do they need the frontage on
They
there?
don't need it at all, no. They have plenty of frontage on Toby Road. They have over 900 feet on Toby. So it wouldn't be something they actually needed.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why I asked about it. What contractually, now they have given each other the right to pass and repass.
But this gives them frontage on 28.
For the way.
This will make any difference. What are we using for a name? Toby Road or 28? George, is 150 feet on 28? What's Walmart's mailing address? Do you know offhand?
Walmart's mailing address? I don't.
Their address is off of Toby Road.
It's off of Toby Road,
Right.
so that 150 feet on 28 doesn't make any difference one way or the other.
Right.
You gotta be suspicious. Comes up with this really
Right, exactly.
Seeing that
That's what I mean,
recorded.
you're making.
Say it again.
Will you still vote on this if you have to have that?
That's not where the sign is located, right? The Walmart sign.
You have to have proof of that, right?
Sign is located
Yeah,
further
we'll
up.
have to reread
Sign
this.
is
generally in this area here.
Mm.
That's what he said last week. I mean, last month he was gonna do that. Kind of proof, I thought. I was
Unless they
thinking
needed that little dog leg for their
I've seen this before.
impervious.
Oh, you're saying this is the sign up
Yeah,
here? No,
he was
it's
here
not up
last,
here.
Yeah, it's further down.
because I thought it was a divided line right down the middle. But I could be. Yeah, I remember hearing this, I thought.
Has Mr. Rowley seen this? Mr. Chairman?
Hmm?
Has Mr. Rowley seen this?
I don't know
I
that.
don't believe he has, no.
He's not gonna be available this evening?
Not till later on, if he makes.
They're just looking for an endorsement, right?
Yeah, the intent of this is to also do away with the underlying subdivision, Denali Drive into
That's
three
right.
lots, so
Those
just,
3 lots plus the Denali Drive would no longer exist.
This thing was made originally, right? This was one lot.
they were still shown on the plan, that's why I was
Right.
Okay.
on the Mylar, so.
Right, yeah, they're on there, yeah. So, the purpose is to create from those lots, the other 2 lots, I think is the.
Mhm.
Sir, when you comment, would you use the microphone a little closer to your face?
Sure.
The voice behind the curtain.
Mr. Rowley was here just to give us his thoughts.
So, Mr. Chairman, would the Mylar have to show two lots and take out the other lot lines and that the road that's coming out?
I'm just looking again for the narrative that removes that.
Any reason we couldn't table this until Mr. Rowley gives us his opinion?
Nope,
He's coming in tonight.
that's his intention, but he didn't think he'd be here till after 9.
You see the verbiage on the plan?
I don't see where the,
I'm sorry, for the record, my name is Brian Wall. I also represent the applicant. It's note number 14.
So this is gonna be lot one. It's not labeled on here.
No.
Can I see this a minute? The purpose of this is to create one.
But it is referenced, see?
I'm just questioning why the old subdivision's shown on the Mylar when this is going to replace it.
I guess we showed it to show existing conditions and that we're combining all these parcels. But I think the note makes it clear that we're creating this piece that's we're calling the out parcel.
Mhm.
And then the remaining land is all combined.
Where does it make that clear?
note number 14.
Yeah, I know, I'm reading note number 14. How does that make that clear with all the lot lines you have on here?
Well, I think it's implicit that if that's what we're creating, then the remaining is all combined.
Yet you're still showing all the other.
So John, you don't like the reference lot lines, basically?
Well, I don't see in note 14 how it says those come out. The purpose of the plan is create lot 1 from map 87. Lots 100 A1A, 100 A1B, and 1000 A1C. A1B, A1A. Humor me, where's 1000C?
It's to the right, it's the right of the plan there, it's the larger parcel on the right-hand side.
This parcel here that we're on the right.
This is lot one.
That's
Chair.
A1A.
Oh,
A1B.
towards the top, okay, so.
Yeah,
If
what
I
does
may,
it say?
Chair, I could also direct you to note number 2, where it says
Right.
proposed lot 1, and it gives you the
This
lots
is
in
C,
the
comes
area.
right, and now we drive
And then it
like
says
this.
remaining land, it's all referred to as one aggregate number.
But now what they've done is they've given
But you're really creating
to Walmart.
2 lots then, one, for 1 and 2,
Right.
but you make no reference to the second lot. You know, under the previous approvals that this property's maintained, I think, you know, everybody's intent is clear. I'm just, want to make sure it's filed properly.
Well, I think we've heard for years and years and years there was gonna be another lot, so there's no surprise that you're here. But, so proposed lot 1, 174, 4,000, remaining land. Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, could we just ask Mr. Rowley to review it and make some suggestions on updating the plan and the Mylars before it's approved and processed?
If that's the board's wishes, that's what we can do.
Yeah, 'cause I think
I think if there's confusion,
Yeah.
just as soon have,
you should have divided the lot, you should have just made it 2 lots. Because your 2 notes, if we wanna go back and forth, your 2 notes have some contradictory, they lead you to read 2 different things. And you circle the 3 lots that are listed in note 14, what happened to lot 1?
Well, again, it's the intent of the plan is to create lot 1. That's the whole purpose of the plan.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, so lot 1 is gonna be the 4-acre parcel.
Right.
Okay, so if you go to 2, note 2, proposed lot 1, blah, 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 4 acres.
Right.
Remaining land, whatever it is, 21.6 acres.
Right.
Then 14, the purpose of the plan is to create lot 1 from map 87, and then you show the 3 lots, 1, 2, 3, which will be the 21 acres.
Well, I think, isn't note 1, where it says 1000 A1A, A1B, and A1C, they're these ones right here. It's listed right in the title. Out parcel, map, lots 1000 A1A, A1B, and A1C. It matches up with 14.
No, it doesn't. 1,000 A1A is the lot where the Walmart building is. 1,000 A1B is the parking lot for Walmart, and 1,000 A1C is the upper, I don't know if you call it wetlands or open area or whatever you want to call it. So the out parcel, to me, is the 4-acre piece. So out parcel of S&H Realty, map 87, lots 1,000 A1A, 1,000 A1B, blah, 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 zone commercial. And then you stop at the commercial strip, and then underneath it, you put 174, 370 square feet, or 4 acres. Which is it?
So is it possible to think about it this way? If we take the 3 lots, get rid of them, and that's where we're labeling those, and on that side, we're saying, we've gotten rid of them, now we're taking from that overall lot. It is confusing, I agree,
Your 2 notes are confusing.
yes.
And then when someone, just a guy off the street, I look down, and there's the 3 lots. And I said, well, okay, what's that got to do with the 4 acres you wanna make over here?
Yeah.
You follow me?
Yeah, it's sort of
Split it in
given
two.
the history of it.
You're only gonna have 2 lots there when you're done, correct? You're gonna have the Walmart property that they're leasing, or they bought, whatever.
Right.
And the 4 acres. Just divide it in half. Right now, you've got 4 lots shown, plus the little thing up in the corner. It's not my plan, it's yours.
Right.
You've got 4 lots shown here, and you only want 2. Just cut it in half. I think that's why some of the other board members want the engineer to look at it, and I would bet you a penny that he'll say, just divide it in half. All you gotta do.
This is 4 point,
Table it and we could go out and talk and then come back.
Yeah.
So Mayor's coming at 9 o'clock. I mean, I'll wait around, but I mean, he's gonna see the same thing. So if I may, through the chair, in an effort to move this along, may I ask, does the rest of the board feel as Mr. Martin does? Sorry, Mr. Martin. Got it.
sorry, we don't have name tags, we should.
Barrett.
That's Mr. Cronin over there.
Mr. Cronin, sorry.
Are you talking to me or to the
Right to me.
attorney? Thanks.
So if I may inquire through the chair, does the board feel the same as Mr. Cronin, or are some members comfortable endorsing it the way that it is?
I will pull the board right now. What do you,
I would just like to, I don't see any issues, but I'd like Mr. Rowley to look at it and just say he gives it his blessing, or he would request a few changes. But I don't see any issue with the proposal, so.
I don't see an issue with the proposal either.
The
It's just the intent of the proposal is a simple one, and I'm all for it. But you have 2 notes that say 2 different things, and you show 4 lot numbers. If someone comes in to look at that, it's confusing. Other than that, I think if you split it in 2, show the lot 1 you want to propose, and the remainder of that land stays as the initial lot, or whatever was left, simple. No problem.
Mike?
Mr. Peters, do you?
thoughts one way or the other?
Mr. Rowley will be here this
Yeah,
evening, right?
the intent,
We should be able to close this out
Mhm.
tonight. It's just, he's not gonna be here till 9-ish, if that's okay.
Yeah, this is a really strange configuration. I don't understand why it's done that way, and really hasn't been an explanation. I'd like to have Mr. Riley look at it as well, because this frontage is not even proper frontage. It goes through a drainage easement. It's not frontage. And I think we need to speak with Mr. Riley.
Sounds like they want town engineer to look at it, so
Please.
we will take that up later on this evening. And
So through the chair, may I ask that this be tabled until later this evening?
yes,
Thank you.
is that, I'd like to make that a formal motion.
We table consideration of the Form A plan pending a review by the town consulting engineer.
Is there a second?
I'd second that.
I don't think it's debatable, but all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks. The next on the preliminary business is the tri-party agreement with Jonathan Estates. Where'd Mario go? Oh, there he is. Disappeared on me. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Margaret Ishihara, attorney for Maplewood Builders, and Mario DeBona, manager of Maplewood Builders. We are, may proceed?
Yeah.
We're here looking for a release of the tripartite agreement. The tripartite agreement was entered into as a means of securing the performance by Maplewood Builders of the construction of the ways and all the other associated structures that went with that. We have submitted an as-built plan showing all the various features. And my understanding is, in looking at the checkoff sheet from the town engineer, the Form N, that basically he's checked off all the required matters, with the exception of the final inspection. And I guess my understanding of that, in speaking to my client and earlier this evening with Mr. Pichette, that the final inspection sign-off is not an issue with making sure that everything has been completed, but Mr. Rowley wanted to make sure that the planning board approved it, and then he would sign off the final approval.
How you doing? How you doing?
Yeah, this is Charlie's checklist. He signed it all off. I spoke with him and he was comfortable with it.
No,
And Mr. Rowley has also looked at the as-built plan. My understanding is he's approved that as well. Well, he had an issue with the others, so we're just,
I think it was emailed. I don't know if it's in here.
On this project?
I know he sent a couple emails. It may not have been this project.
Question?
Do we have any correspondence from Mr. Rowley in this?
Yeah.
Sign-off sheet.
Oh, wait, we didn't have it in
Say, he hasn't signed off on the final pending,
Mr. Rowley has it.
pending our discussion this evening.
I did speak with Mr. Rowley about this site, and he has inspected it and has told me verbally that he feels that everything has been complied with at this point in time. Yeah.
I guess the only question is on the street acceptance plan is where he put the lot line, which I think is a little past this stage of the game.
I think at this point, Mr. Chairman, I understand that Mr. Rowley's concern or issue with regard to the layout, and this comes after what we're doing here this evening, is that he felt that the layout plan for Brittany Drive, and our intention is to present this to have it accepted by the town, that it should show the ownerships of the various lot owners to the middle of the way. I haven't really looked at that issue to really establish whether I agree with him or not. So I'd like to look at that issue, and at this time, if you can keep the layout plan in your file, we would be coming back at another meeting to address that.
Question for Selectman Slavin, if he's, the release of the surety, the tri-party agreement, does your board have a say in that?
Usually. I believe if we're continuing under the
charter and the bylaws, I believe that has to go before the board for approval.
Please use the microphone now.
I don't have one.
Share, try share.
Now I want to share. Sorry, Mario, just life from the big city. Most likely what I think what has to happen is a request to the Board of Selectmen will have to be put on the agenda just so we release it. And the earliest that could be would be next Tuesday. It's too late to get it for tomorrow. Unless I can bring it up under 24 hours. And if the board so wishes, I can do that.
Does this letter from Mr. Moore play into this at all, where he's stating that one of the homes wasn't built to the specifications of the original approved plan?
I missed that one.
I don't know that we have a copy of whatever you have.
I just found it in my file.
Yeah, yeah, I haven't seen it,
Here,
but,
come on,
yeah.
I'll share.
Oh, Mikey's sharing, that's scary.
I just read it, and it just says that basically the foundation was put in lower than proposed on the original plan and approved, so, please.
If I might just address the, with regard to the issue that Selectman Slavin had raised, the tripartite agreement is not a, it's not a cash bond or anything that's held. I wasn't sure what the
I think what
rationale was behind the Selectmen, because this is the first that I've seen that that's a requirement, so I'm just asking.
I believe whatever the surety bond is, if it's a release of financial responsibility of the town, I think the selectmen have to approve it. At least that's what I remember from the bylaws and stuff that was there,
Yeah.
on a surety bond.
It's not a surety bond per se. It's actually a three-way agreement between the lender and the planning board and the developer, in which the lender is actually holding funds. So there aren't any funds. I could understand it in the situation. I'm not really trying to be argumentative. I'm just trying to think,
it's fine. It's
yeah,
just-
to talk this through. I could understand it in a situation if you actually, if it was a performance bond, or as in some cases, you know, there's a cash bond or a letter of credit that's actually being held by the town.
I believe in order to protect the interests of the town and stuff, we'd have to go before town council for a ruling. I can only give you what the basic rule is. If this is considered an exception, not quite following the basis of the rule, we'd have to ask town council. I'd be uncomfortable making a decision. I didn't sleep in a Holiday Inn last night.
On the second issue, and again, I'm looking,
For the house lot, there is, yes. We haven't dealt with that yet because we haven't been asked to.
with regard to the letter from the building commissioner, this seems, I haven't seen this before, so bear with me, but it seems to me that it's an issue having to do with, and we're not agreeing that he's correct, but having to do with a particular house that was put up. So with regard to the planning board issues, as you know, would have to do with the construction of the ways and the drainage structures and all that, and clearly we've met that.
Well, there is a homeowners association trust. I don't know if the board approved that initially or not. If not, I would think we'd want to at least look at it, because it does cover the common areas and some of the maintenance items. And David, was there an order of conditions on the subdivision as a whole?
There was, yes.
Is a certificate issued on that?
Not at this time, no. Because they haven't requested it of us at this time.
At what point would you normally look for that certificate of compliance?
Typically, when the project is done, the applicant would request that of the commission, then we would go and do our final inspection. At this point, they have not requested that of us, so we haven't taken that up at this point.
I think we probably would have also needed the as-built plan, which we just basically finished, so we are headed to the Conservation Commission, obviously.
So wouldn't the surety be released after the certificate has been approved and issued? We shouldn't even be talking about surety until it's all signed off, correct? To me, I would
No.
never release surety until I had a certificate of compliance completed.
Well, they are two separate matters, technically, because our certificate of compliance has to do with wetland permitting, not per se the standards that the planning board is looking to have completed. Mr. Rowley has reviewed the road construction and is in agreement that that has been completed relative to the planning board issues. Some of our issues might be separate in regards to landscaping issues, things of that nature.
What about in this letter from Mr. Moore, and it references the berm on the road at the driveway? Wouldn't that not be part of the road?
Again, I'm just going by Mr. Rowley's discussion of the road in terms of what he said. He seemed that everything was completed. The house lot itself has its own wetlands permit
Right.
as a separate project, so we would also have to finalize and review that as well and issue a certificate of compliance for that separate project.
So let me jump in, Mike. I'm on the same track. I hope I am with you. So, Mr. Pichette, then the separate permit for that individual lot, for that house that's being built, looking at the letter from the building commissioner that says, on the as-built, that says it's 1'7" off, and it needs some drainage, and it needs this, and it needs that, that's an issue that builder or homeowner has to take up direct with you guys.
Yes.
Correct? Because you're gonna have some water issues there. So that lot will become a separate thing, and the berm suggested by the building commissioner will come into effect. It may not be shown on the plan, but I think what he's saying is, where the thing's so low now, if you don't put a berm at the top, you could get extra water flowing down. So I think that's gonna be, that's a separate permit, then it's separately covered. If it wasn't a separate permit, then I'd be on the same track that,
And my only question was, did the original road layout plan show a berm that isn't there? I don't know that.
No, it did not.
Okay.
And with respect to the individual house lot, we have not received an as-built plan on that either. So we don't have anything to compare with our original plan yet to determine whether anything is off or it isn't. So we were copied on that letter as well as the Conservation Commission, but we have no way to verify all the details of the plan we approve versus what's actually built. So again, until the builder comes in and says he wants a certificate of compliance and provides us with an as-built plan, we don't have anything to base what differences might have been created out there.
And to get the occupancy permit for that home, he didn't need a certificate of compliance from the board?
No, you don't need a certificate of compliance for the occupancy, because in many instances, depending on the seasonality, you might not be able to complete the requirements that we have, even though the house is constructed and ready to be lived in. So it's not a requirement for that.
The separation between the basement floor and the water table is a building code issue, I believe.
Right.
And I don't know if a CO's been issued for that, for the lot that he speaks of or not. I would suggest that at this point that we could authorize the release of the tri-party agreement pending any approval or release that the selectmen would have to also authorize.
Yeah, I think Selectman Slavin's point of giving it to town council would probably be the best route. I'm not sure if you have to have a vote on that with your board. You could get some guidance from council, might go a lot quicker. But yeah, I'd be in favor of handling the first part and get this moving.
I have a concern, not looking, having reviewed the homeowners association, and I think that the certificate of compliance for the subdivision should be obtained before you release, because whatever work may be required by conservation could affect the drainage structures or something relating to the subdivision. So it may look fine now, but if conservation says, no, you have to make changes, then it's gonna modify our plan.
Right.
So
What,
I'd like to look at those two.
I think it's fairly clear. I know that at one point there was some discussion of having one-stop shopping, but we are not there in terms of land use. And I think it's pretty clear that under the subdivision statute, that if you give a covenant, whether it be by way of cash or a performance bond or a tripartite agreement, that it's held so that we will meet the requirements of the subdivision law and the subdivision rules and regulations. I do have a copy of the homeowners association somewhere.
Yes, it's attached to the letter that we have.
Okay, good. I'm glad, I wasn't sure that was in your
So you're
file.
looking at the same.
It's a little long to review in the middle of the meeting, but it's there.
Again, the tripartite agreement was for a performance bond for the construction of the roadway and the subdivision infrastructure, and that all seems to have been done. The only question I have is, do we have to take the additional step of having the Board of Selectmen vote to release as well as us?
Mr. Chairman. I don't want to make life more difficult for Mario. This has been a long, difficult project, taking over a pre-existing project that I believe went bankrupt that he took over. But I'd rather err on the side of safety, since we've been pummeled more than a few times with, releasing, surety bonds on certain projects and coming back and biting the town. Thank you.
So I guess I would look for a motion to release it pending any other approvals that may have to go with it. That way we could, perhaps, once the issue is squared away with the selectman's office, we could stop in the office and sign off on it.
I assume one of the conditions is a recording of an as-built plan, and it hasn't been recorded.
Well,
Hasn't been approved.
actually, with regard to the recording of the as-built plan, because I thought about this, it's actually in a format that you could do that. So from a title point of view, a title attorney is looking at the layout of the lots themselves. And if that had changed, I think we probably would have needed to file a new plan, because in order to make any conveyancing, you'd have to do that. I don't know that the as-built plans actually get recorded, because the as-built plans are showing, I guess we could, but the as-built plans are showing structures really, not title issues per se, not boundary lines and that sort of thing.
It would show the roadway, actual location, and the bounds that were put in.
That is on the plan.
On the as-built,
It is,
It's not
it is
recorded.
on the as-built.
yeah.
Does show bounds. Do you want to take a look at it?
It's not recorded.
No, but the point was that info is on the plan.
No, I understand that.
So there's really two things there. The as-built, as I said, it shows the structures. When we get back to you with regard to the layout plan, that really is a title issue, because the road, as it's laid out, assuming that we're successful and we get through the town meeting and the other approvals that we need, the road actually gets conveyed over to the town of Wareham. The as-built is basically for your planning board purposes, or conservation commission purposes, to see, what are the engineers certifying as to what's actually out there.
July 4th, 1776.
We corrected that. I heard that. We corrected that 1776
Sort
thing.
of jumps out at you.
Yeah.
It's been in front of the board a long time.
Mr. Pichette, Mr. Rowley has signed off on all of his inspections at this point, and he has no further work to do on this subdivision?
That's correct.
Mr. Pichette, what's the question that Mr. Rowley had on the lot line as the road goes through with each individual lot? Is he concerned that a piece of each lot comes into the road, or each lot would be responsible for a piece of that road?
Yes, basically, that's the case. He felt that the road layout plan should show that each particular lot actually owns halfway to the middle of the road, which it currently doesn't show. So that was his issue with the road plan. But in terms of the actual construction, he was satisfied that everything has been completed. It's just an issue he had with the actual plan, not the construction.
And it was the other plan, right? The one that's.
Right, the road layout plan, not the as-built.
Right.
The only thing he had with the as-built was the 1776 issue.
Which we fixed.
In which case, they would look for a constructive approval.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we grant the release upon the approval of the town council through the selectmen, whichever method they need to take for the construction of the road.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'd second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Abstained? So that would be, I didn't hear, was it unanimous on this end? Okay, one decline and one opposed. And we'll handle that in-house and have them give you a call when
Do you want that?
everything is squared away.
No, I think what we'll need is just something from the board, asking,
And Mr. Rowley?
for release. That way the town council can just review it quickly. If the paperwork is available to us, if you want, I can do it under the 48-hour. If not, it'll be next Tuesday.
Mr. Pichette? Make sure that Mr. Rowley sees that letter from Mr. Moore, just to make sure that there's no connections.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Mario.
Next, we have the continued public hearing for Kaplan Development, Rosebrook Way.
He's coming up with the next one.
Matter that I believe you skipped on the informal business.
Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped over the woods of Great Neck, I'm sorry. I apologize to both. Would you please? Good evening.
Good evening.
I know you were before us once before,
I was this past summer, yes.
and I think you were trying to coordinate your completion with town meeting acceptance, is that accurate?
Both, yes.
Oh, I'll let you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Lee Castagnetti, representing Long-Built Homes, in connection with the Woods at Great Neck and our development of that project, a 20-lot residential, single-family subdivision. And yes, I had submitted a request for a partial release of the surety during the summer of 2015. And at that point in time, there were several issues and items that were outstanding that were brought to the board's attention in a letter from Mr. Rowley dated July 23rd. And since that time, we've addressed all of the items that were identified in Mr. Rowley's letter. I have conferred with Mr. Rowley that all of the items on the Hancock Associates original estimate had been fully completed to his satisfaction, and that all of the work that we were required to do to fulfill our obligations under your subdivision rules and regulations have in fact been performed to his satisfaction.
But again, I have conferred with him, and he is in agreement that this also has been completed.
We do have an as-built on that?
Yes, that's what
Oh,
I just handed out.
Okay, I didn't read that.
Has Mr. Rowley given you a letter, David, for the file, that he's reviewed and agreed that all the open items have been satisfactorily completed?
He has stated that. Again, I don't have it in a written form, but he has spoken to me that he is in agreement with this road as well.
Okay. So we're gonna get a letter from him stating that for the file?
And I believe we have, after the last discussion, the same issue with the release of the
Yes.
surety, so.
So if there is no other comments or questions, I would look for a motion for the same to allow the sign-off or the release pending Mr. Rowley's letter and any additional releases required.
Any questions over there?
Well, you know, we get these and we don't have the conditions, the original conditions of approval. So you're sort of looking at this without knowing what else might be in there, not just the engineering, but anything else, so it's,
We do have the file, if you care to look at that.
yeah, it's just sort of in the middle of the meeting, it makes it a little difficult. I mean, you know, you get here and you're trying to do all of that and read it in the middle of the meeting, but it's, I don't know what conditions were on there, so.
It's just looking at this. Someone care to make a motion? Don't all jump up at once.
I'm just looking at the declaration of trust. So the items that are crossed out, they were just left that way and no change was made to this document?
No.
And so it was just crossed out on 20 copies and recorded? Is that what you're saying?
On 20 copies? I'm
Well,
not-
you said that the trust document was presented at the time of the purchase for each and every lot or home.
Yes.
But when I'm reading this, if this is it, quite a few of the lines are crossed out. So did you just take 20 copies of this and cross it out, and that's how it was recorded?
No, that's how it was recorded, right.
Interesting.
This significantly preceded our involvement in the project.
Wow.
The original developer had declared bankruptcy, lost the project to Fall River 5-cent Savings Bank. And actually, I take that back. The original developer, Turowitz, sold it to Mulligan, Pre-Core, I believe, was the entity. Mulligan was the one that went bankrupt, and the project was then taken by the bank, and then that was sold to a private individual in New Bedford. And we had originally begun doing it as an option arrangement, where we were taking down lots on an ongoing basis, and then we got halfway through the project of 10 lots, and then at that point in time, we bought the last 10 lots, and they assigned their interest to us in the surety, and we undertook the obligation to complete the roadways.
Okay.
So this preceded our involvement by,
But you used it because you sold.
we did, it was already on record, we were,
So you just continued to have a new buyer for every lot sign the same document and file it,
not signed, it just
or record it?
acknowledged, we provided every one of our buyers with a copy of this as an exhibit to the purchase and sale agreement, to their purchase and sale agreement with us.
And it didn't have to be recorded?
It was already recorded. This was
For the
recorded in
for the subdivision.
2007,
Okay.
so it was already a matter of record at the time that each of our buyers purchased a home from us. And it was made an exhibit to the P&S agreement, so that each P&S agreement with an explanation of the
Referenced it.
arrangement with the homeowners association, so they would understand
Yeah.
what their obligations were ultimately when we stepped out of the picture, and they,
Is it your intent to keep going through to the street acceptance?
yes. We actually, that was actually the second request in my letter. We had appeared before the Board of Selectmen in September of 2015, at which time the Board of Selectmen had voted to refer the matter to Planning Board as required, seeking recommendation.
Mhm.
So one of the other requests that I had tonight was whether or not you've
So you want to pick up the process now
done
that the road's
anything to,
complete?
right.
Would you be looking for a new application for street acceptance, a fresh one?
Yes, because normally on street acceptance, it's done at fall town meeting, which will now, if the article at town meeting passes, we have two annual fall meetings under the change of the charter rules. But it specifically on the program says the fall town meeting is when we do the street acceptance, so I'm going to use what the state has used to us, is that the issue is initially is stale and should be resubmitted.
So, once again, I would look for a motion to approve the release pending the confirmation from town engineer, and any approval may be required by the selectmen for the release.
Probably would be you would request let the selectmen know whether or not they require you to request it again from you directly. Or whether they'll accept whether the existing request by the selectmen is still valid at this point in time.
So, Lee, is the homeowners association operating?
No, not by the homeowners. We have still undertaken all the obligations under the homeowners association. We have plowed the roads, we have maintained the drainage facilities at our cost. So at this point, the homeowners association has not been transitioned over to the homeowners.
So,
That was something we typically do when the roads are in conjunction with the completion and acceptance of the roads. So that's something that we're in the process of doing now.
do you have lots left over?
No.
Still own lots?
No.
Supposed to have a special meeting 30 days after the conveyance of the final lot.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you talked to people out there
Yeah.
about this, or what it means, or the dues, or?
There are no dues, as I said.
There will be dues.
Yes. Yes. There will be. That's disclosed to every buyer, what our estimate is, what their obligations are under the HOA, and what we estimate their annual cost will be.
And is there a lantern covenant that was recorded?
The decision, the planning board decision had the lantern covenant in it. The requirement,
That took the place of streetlights.
correct.
I'll make a motion that we approve the release upon receipt of town engineer's letter, written approval of the conditions and approval, and also that Mr. Pachette also send a letter to the selectmen requesting them to review or release or vote on, however they have to do it, with council or themselves.
Is there an order of conditions on this subdivision?
No.
No, there is not. Nor is there one on any of the lots.
How did that happen?
We're not jurisdictional.
There's no wetlands there.
I think all
Rare.
I think all the wetlands issues are in the open space section.
They are.
They
That's
were-
exactly correct,
They were
yes.
outside the limits of construction.
That is correct.
Just a question, Mr. Chairman, did the Board of Selectmen, did the planning board ever send a note or a letter officially back to the Board of Selectmen saying the project was not ready? Or something to the effect that, you couldn't come back with a positive recommendation yet?
I don't remember that we
that would-
actually got notified that we were supposed to issue a report.
Yeah, you know what I'm trying to get at? If you had basically sent something back at a negative level, that would have basically killed the process at that point, so they definitely have to go back again from the beginning. I don't remember it coming back to us, is why I'm asking the question.
I don't think any letter of that nature was sent from the planning board back to the selectmen, no. I think at the time, there was still a couple of outstanding issues that had to be completed, even though they were minor, and that's why it wasn't brought to the planning board for a final review, because those things weren't yet completed. Now they have been, and Mr. Rowley has been out there and is comfortable with that, and that's why we're in front of the board now with this.
So I have a motion, is there a second? Mike seconded it. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So moved. So as soon as we get the paperwork ironed out. A new request for street acceptance would be, what's your deadline for fall town meeting for that? Does it have to be in by the, there's a timeline etched out in the street acceptance procedure that doesn't match up with the requirements at town meetings.
Yeah, it's still kind of messed up, I believe. But I don't believe there'd be an issue at this point in time.
I think one of the parts of that request is a sign off by a majority of the homeowners, so.
Yeah.
If that needs to, give you some time to work on that.
That was already done, so.
I didn't know if it
Yeah.
got that far. All right, as soon as we get the paperwork straightened out, we will give you a call.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thanks for
Appreciate
coming
it.
in.
Thank you.
And thank you for completing that. Now, we will get to the previously mentioned continued public hearing with Kaplan Development.
You get that one? It's all set. You have to come back.
Change my mind.
Good evening.
Good evening.
See, you've been exchanging some paperwork back and forth here.
Yes, if I may, my name is Brian Bowen. I'm an attorney with Winokur, Cirque and Rosenberg. I'm pinch hitting for Rich Cirque tonight. As you know, this is a continuation of the public hearing for an application for a special permit and site plan review. With me tonight are two principals of the applicant, Kaplan Development, Mr. Ben Wells and John Ogutsurk. I practiced John, but, and also our engineer, Phil Cudero. And I know a lot of material had been discussed at the first hearing, and there were some suggestions made by the town's consulting engineer, Mr. Rowley. All of those, I believe, as you'll hear from Mr. Cudero, were incorporated into the plans that I believe you have before you now that are dated March 7th. However, I'm not sure if you have a copy of the letter from Mr. Rowley dated March 13th.
Mm-hmm.
So he was working a little overtime. And so there are two sections of that. One is his recommendations as to some additional conditions on the latter part, and then before that are some other items, including specifically two further changes he is requesting to be made to the plans. Given when we got that, the March 7th plans don't reflect those two conditions. And specifically, they're condition 4 and 5. However, that is strictly a matter of timing. They will be incorporated into a revised set of final plans. In addition, to respond to the recommendations for additional conditions in Mr. Rowley's letter is I have drafted a proposed decision for your consideration, hopefully assist you, that incorporates all of those conditions. So not only the ones that he previously suggested, but also the ones that are included in the March 13th letter. There are only two footnotes to that representation that the conditions in my proposed decision, which I'll submit to you tonight, one is that we would have to change the date on the final plans. So what we're going to be asking you to do at the conclusion, if it's appropriate as far as the board's concerned, is that you close the hearing and take your vote. So it would be subject to the additional condition that Mr. Rowley review and confirm that the final plans to be submitted do in fact adequately incorporate those two conditions. The second footnote is in terms of the bond. We're going to be Mr. Rowley suggested two ways to secure the release from the covenant, the subdivision covenant. One is to either have the completion, the work in front of Lot 3, as he describes it, which is the roadway work in front of that lot completed, or the provision of a bond. And my client has contacted the bonding company, and we have actually, in addition to the proposed decision, I'll be submitting a specimen form of the bond that incorporates, again, the conditions that Mr. Rowley suggested, except for one, which is a completion date. So, just to get it all out there, the other thing that we're going to ask that you incorporate as part of your vote is that it's also subject to a completion date. And what we're recommending is that it be 1 year from the date of issuance of the building permit. So the way that would work is that if for some reason, we're expecting to have that roadway work done within a year of the beginning of the project. And obviously, sooner the better for us, and then at that point, the bond is there. I would suggest to you that it's worth referencing that if the applicant wishes to extend that date, they would have to come back before the planning board to get a date beyond that 1 year deadline. Who knows what, there could be an appeal, those types of things when the building permit issues. But other than that, we would anticipate that we'd ask that to be the completion date. And obviously, if there was some problem at that point in time, you have the bond as security, should any work not be done. So with that mouthful, I'll turn it over to Mr. Cordero, and I guess he's going to pick up where the last recommendations from Mr. Rowley left off.
Thank you. Happy to do it again. For the record, Phil Cordero from Allen and Major Associates, record site engineers. When we last appeared in front of the board, we had recently received Mr. Rowley's review letter, which, as I mentioned the last time, was largely technical clarifications and some further detailing. The more substantive matters included coordination with the AD Makepeace development in terms of bog operation, floodings, and so on, and additional detail regarding some of our drainage calculations and infiltration testing procedures. We had occasion to speak with Mr. Rowley, walk through all of the issues, and certainly report back to him in that March 8 letter and the plans dated March 7. So as Brian mentioned, we certainly incorporated all of the technical clarifications and details that he sought. Catch basin structures, snouts, collar rings in the roadway and so on, very minor details. In terms of the ADM coordination, we put in the letter additional detail regarding how the bogs are maintained and that essentially they will not interfere with the Kaplan Development Group. However, AD Makepeace will coordinate with Kaplan Development should any aerial spraying take place, any flooding of the bogs, anything that would impact this development would certainly be conveyed well in advance of that occurring. Lastly, we did speak to Mr. Rowley, and one of his points was to make sure adequate easements exist for the codependency of this lot, which is Lot 3, relative to Lots 1 and 2 to complete the Rosebrook Business Park. So I believe Mr. Rowley, in his letter dated March 13, notes that so long as those easements are provided to the board, they will be recorded in the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds. That certainly suited him and his conditions. I'm very happy to walk through, each of the comments, and we can discuss how we've addressed them. I think, in short, I'd reiterate what Brian mentioned. We do have the letter from Mr. Rowley dated March 13, and my takeaway from it is that he's in agreement with the changes, save for 2 additional catch basin clarifications identified as conditions 4 and 5, which we're happy to accommodate. We just certainly couldn't do it in the timing of receiving the letter and appearing in front of the board here tonight. So we'd suggest and happily accept any condition relative to those. As an alternative, we can certainly revise the plans and provide those back to this board within the appeal period. Since it is a special permit, there's 20 days before it will go into effect. So we can coordinate with this board on providing what the final date of the plans will be, so you can reference them in any decision should you wish to entertain those tonight. Again, we were happy to work with Charlie. He was very open, and the line of communication was terrific in terms of focusing in on this project. and hopefully the board agrees with the changes that we've made. I think we made a lot of progress since the last meeting a few weeks ago.
There was a request about the hydrant location or access to the hydrant. Did you address that?
What I can address is when we submitted the original plans, the Wareham Fire District asked for two alternatives. They asked for for a curb cut onto Road A, just through here, which would be to access an existing hydrant that is located on Road A. Alternatively, they were willing to accept an additional hydrant installed on the property at the rear of the site. So we have opted to install that second hydrant as opposed to creating the curb cut onto Road A. So we met that condition of the fire district.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, if you look at Mr. Rowley's letter of March 13th, you'll see a number 3 that he confirms that the relocation is acceptable to the fire district.
Yes, sir.
So the 50,000 gallons that was allotted, you say in lots 1 and 2, is it just those 2 lots that, and lot 3, those are the only lots that are included?
Rosebrook Place is conveyed through the pump station that ultimately makes its way to Thatcher Lane. So the 50,000 gallons, I believe, is inclusive of Rosebrook Place as well. So we have a portion of the allotment for Rosebrook Park, and then Rosebrook Place is the full build-out of that 50,000 gallons. That's my understanding. Now, I say that, sir, I wasn't the engineer in Rosebrook Place, so that's my understanding of it.
For those of us who are uninitiated, Rosebrook Place and Rosebrook Park, 2 different projects.
Rosebrook Place is certainly the front development with Five Guys and the insurance company, the bank, and the
Yeah.
hotel. And then Rosebrook Park is the 3-lot development here in the back. Lot 1 being the medical office building, Lot 2 being a permitted medical office building, not constructed, and Lot 3 being the request here for Kaplan development.
So it's Rosebrook Park that has the 50,000 gallon.
No, it's
both projects.
It's
It's everything.
They all flow to Thatcher Lane to the pump station, so it's the aggregate of both of those developments.
So what's the total then? You gave us lots 1 and 2 and lot 3. So what's the gallonage for the initial part, Rosebrook development? Place.
Sorry, for Rosebrook Place, I don't have that data here with me, so I can't convey that number to you. What I wanted to convey to Mr. Rowley in the correspondence is that Lot 1, 2, and 3 had been previously permitted, previous permitting efforts. So we're still below that permitting criteria for 1, 2, and 3, even with the Kaplan development here. So I don't have the number, unfortunately, for Rosebrook Place, sir.
What's the number for your building?
So we put in for 16,800 gallons per day based on Title V flows. Mr. Rowley asked us to sort of focus in on that number with the water usage that the development will typically see, which ranges between 5,800 and 7,200 gallons per day.
So Five Guys and the bank and the insurance company and the hotel and all of that is included in the 50,000 plus lots 1 and 2 plus this lot 3.
Right.
And we don't know what the total gallonage is that is generated out of those.
I don't have the Rosebrook Place, sir. No. Can certainly obtain that information. I just don't have it here this evening.
And if I may, naturally, the condition is one of the conditions of this is going to be that it's subject to the approval of all other departments, including the water district and everyone else. So, I mean, obviously, that's one of your conditions, that we have to satisfy everybody else's conditions.
And then,
I believe the reference is to the amount of sewer capacity that's been granted this project, not so much the water consumption. It's how much sewer capacity was granted.
that's right. It was based on
Many-
the
many
sewer
years ago.
capacity. But several years ago, we did provide all, not this particular letter, but the initial application to Mr. Campina, so he could review it to make sure it was in keeping with that original permit issuance from several years ago.
That original permitting request or whatever, did it include this location, or? 'Cause
Yes.
I didn't understand that.
It-
I think I was confused at the last meeting where it included the medical building and the lot across the street, but I didn't know if it included this parcel as well.
Yes, it did, sir.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I don't know how they arrived at that number initially. It doesn't, no comment's been made as to whether that number could be expanded upon.
When the developments were contemplated many years ago, we did an analysis of potential sewer allotment based on build-out, and that's how they arrived at that number. It was a coordination with Weston and Sampson as sewer engineers.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that the infrastructure is maxed out at that. It's just how much they granted you at the time.
That's correct. The board will recall, there are, excuse me, sewage pump stations on both the Rosebrook Business Park and Rosebrook Place. And obviously, if necessary, sewage tanks could be expanded and the flow within the municipal system changes as well. So that could be reviewed.
Wasn't this also part of where Makepeace made a major contribution to the Sanborn pumping facility is all part of this for future development? And that there was an award of an allocation of 50,000 gallons a day for the Rosebrook period. Not the breakout the way it is now, which would be 3 buildings anyways that you've basically approved, plus, the retail and mixed-use development that's going on. Because there's 3 other little pads in the back of where the restaurants are, and those I think have come before you while I was away, one of them at least, with a mixed-use request. Because there was a change in request, I think, actually from ZBA, if I'm not mistaken, this past week, to change the mixed-use, commercial, retail, residential, and they've taken out the commercial. They were looking for a minor modification, and I believe it was turned down as a minor. And they went from 35 residential units, David, to 65 or 68.
Right.
So the mix has kind of changed quite a bit.
That's the 2 back buildings.
Actually, there would be 3 pieces there, I think. I could be wrong, but it's at least 2, could be 3. Yes.
The decision we have here, is that the one that you proposed, or?
It isn't, because, as I said, to
You've
incorporate
updated it.
the March 13th, so I have a, if I may. Two copies. Just to reiterate, because there was a lot in my opening remarks, that proposed decision incorporates virtually everything from the March 13th letter, with the exception of there being a completion date for the bond, which we are going to propose to be 1 year from the issuance of the building permit. And we understand Mr. Rowley's not here tonight. We understand he's coming, so we would certainly expect and invite you to vote to impose a condition that it be subject to his review and confirmation as to that issue, as well as confirmation that any revised building plans necessary reflect the 2 additional conditions, 4 and 5, in his letter. And other than that, I think that proposed decision covers everything. And I do know you have rather limited secretarial services, so I'd be happy to email to whoever you designate a Word version of it so that you can cut and paste if you find that appropriate.
We have exemplary secretarial.
Actually, the board does have a secretary in the
Could I
office.
ask a question?
Sure.
Yes.
One quick point on your response letter to Charlie's initial letter. One of the comments he had was that, in terms of the drainage report, that soil conditions within the footprint of the drainage area would be confirmed at the time of construction. He stated that this is not acceptable and adequate soil conditions should be verified as part of the initial design. If conditions require a change in design at the time of construction, the project schedule could be impacted significantly. And then you responded to that comment in your recent letter. And in speaking with Mr. Rowley recently, he still felt that that work should be done first versus later. Because again, if soil conditions aren't appropriate, then you've got to redesign in some fashion, and that would then potentially require the board to have to review a revised plan and so forth. So I just wanted that point to be made to the board. You can do what you want with it, but that was a thought that we discussed earlier on that issue, because you just don't want to see these things have to be changed midstream. It should be identified prior to the final design, in my opinion, but.
Mr. Pichette, if I may dovetail onto that, we certainly talked to Mr. Rowley about that, and he's correct in the points of our discussion. The gap is that we didn't do a formal test with inside the infiltration basin itself. We have a number of on-site borings that we did both recently with this developer and with AD Makepeace. We obviously developed Lot 1 and Lot 2, so we're confident in the soils. So let me just say that. But in the absence of having that formal data, we discussed with Mr. Rowley that we would absolutely get the backhoe out there and dig the hole and confirm it as the very first thing we do. So that was the intent of our response in the letter. And then on page 2 of Charlie's letter dated March 13, number 3 at the top of the page, he makes reference to that as well, that it's the first thing we do on site. So when the conditions are there, we'll verify them. If for whatever reason the conditions are not what we expect them to be, and a change is warranted, again, absolutely correct, we would have to seek a modification from the board to adjust the plans to whatever we find out there. But again, we're moving forward with fairly good confidence based on our familiarity with the site, the surrounding bogs, and working with AD Makepeace.
And if I may, despite our confidence, if you look at proposed condition number 13, and if I can read it for you, since you all don't have a copy, it says, "The basin area shall be tested upon contractor mobilization to confirm the site soils, and the test results will be submitted to the planning board's peer review consultant and staff. If any discrepancies are found necessitating changes to the site plan documents, such changes shall be submitted for approval to the planning board." So I believe that, again, covers it so that we can go forward, and you always have an opportunity to take a look at those and reconsider.
We did have a letter from the building commissioner regarding the parking spaces. Should be in your packet. Well, he did jump into a time machine and visit the Rainham facility. I think he means March 1st, not April 1st.
He's visiting it next month.
Yes.
Yeah, I was with him when he visited the site.
He confirmed that the proposed number of spaces was adequate. At 57.
Which was also a concern on Mr. Rowley's initial letter, so we solicited Mr. Moore's input.
This is a public hearing, so I'll ask if there's anyone here that would like to comment on that. Are there any other requirements of the board?
I just have a quick question. Can you talk about lighting? I'm looking at your small versions and I see the parking lighting, but in the back of the property, I assume wall packs or something. There's nothing noted in the plan here that I'm looking at, but I haven't read every page, but
Yeah, so what we have for the site plan is, again, the site fixtures, you know, the photometrics from the overhead. But presumably you will have wall packs on the rear of the building. Obviously, there are
Yes.
entry, exit points onto the patio area, so there will be wall packs for illumination. Yes. They're not shown on the plan, it's just the vertical lighting elements.
And signage, there's one sign, just a sign out at the street, there's not anything on the building, or?
No, there's one in front of the building.
Yeah,
There's two
yeah,
and one is on the other side.
I have the drawing of the sign, the street sign, but
Right.
is there anything else on the building right now?
And if I may, just to follow up on that, in our proposed decision, condition number 17 says, "All site lighting shall be cut off and shielded to prevent direct light overflow and trespass onto abutting properties. Lighting shall be reduced to the minimum necessary for security."
So, did you say that you were gonna have a revised plan set date, or are we using this date on this plan?
Well, I would defer to the board and your pleasure. I mean, we can certainly work with you as appropriate. If you are willing to, you know, take a vote this evening imposing the conditions that we provide those two sheets at some date certain, we will absolutely do it. If we wanted to sit here tonight, we could say, I will deliver a plan set to you tomorrow with these revisions incorporated, and we'll date everything March 15th. We can work it either way to make sure you're satisfied.
Yeah, I was just asking because in the decision, you'd wanna have the final plan revision date that everybody's gonna see as the plan of record, so I just wanna make sure everybody's on the same page with that.
My suggestion perhaps to address that in language specific enough, but broad enough to cover whichever way we do it, is that it be subject to receipt of final plans that are reviewed and approved by the board's engineering consultant, incorporating those two conditions if needed. So one way or the other, you know, in other words, it's like everything else, it's a condition that has to be satisfied. You've got your decision, and it's a condition that is subject to further satisfaction, and that would be Mr. Rowley's review and approval. Regardless of what dates on the plans, they would be deemed final plans once he reviews and approves them.
I think his comment was that the actual decision that the board votes on should have the specific date on those.
Right,
Sheets.
that's what I was getting at. So if the board votes to approve it, then the decision just won't be issued until you get us the revised set, and then that decision could be modified if that's the board's way they want to go about it. If the board feels they have to have the plans in hand before a decision, that's, you know, a different story. But as long as when the actual decision is issued, it's going to reference the correct revised plan. So that's all I'm getting at.
Well, my concern is we have a draft decision that we haven't looked at, and I'd like to spend the time to review it and comment on it before we vote on it. And it seems to me we shouldn't do it by reading aloud sentences.
I think we've had that discussion before about closing public hearings and
Yeah.
had a couple bad experiences recently, so I think it's better that we make sure all the paperwork's done and completed before we entertain that.
If it'll lighten your copying load, I do have 2 other copies.
Well, if you could email a copy, a Word version of the thing.
Thank you.
Would that go to Mr. Pichette?
Yes, that's fine, then I can circulate it to all the board members.
Great.
I'm just trying to go over a couple of the comments from the draft. Like you say, look at that photometrics. notations to be made on the plan and date. Has the bond document been reviewed? Are we just getting it now?
I believe you're just getting it now.
In reference to the sewer, where it was previously handled by the selectmen, now there's a sewer commission. Can we get something in writing confirming what they're seeing as current usage and allowance still available? Is that,
I think there's going to be some difficulties because I believe there's some discussion that, and John precedes me on this, that Makepeace was given, I think on the original BDOD, that there would be sufficient sewer available for the BDOD. And then I think there was something about 50,000 gallons a day for Rosebrook. And I think because of the capacity of the sewer system at this particular time, it's like the numbers are slowly going towards zero. And I'm not sure where they're at because they're claiming, I think, a higher per gallon usage than we think it's actually there because of the INA in which they're working on, which could be a couple 100,000 gallons a day. So I think there's some issues there that are kind of gray. Because I don't think the Rosebrook portion is really laid out, because you had two lots which, you know, after the first medical building, you have no idea what was going to be used and what the capacity would be. And then you have the restaurants and other developments coming in with no actual numbers. So I don't think anybody has had the ability to sit there and, if it's 50,000 gallons for Rosebrook, where they're really at in total. And with the new sewer commissioners, I would unfortunately say that life is not simple right now.
Well, I have a number of seats in the restaurant.
I mean,
Square footage on
that
that.
can all be calculated though, based on their current application
It
process.
can be current, but, you know, if the total was, you know, allotted as 50 as an acceptable that the town would guarantee,
Right.
I think with what's going on and what's proposed, especially with last Wednesday's meeting of the ZBA and stuff with that project, I think the numbers are kind of, could be questionable.
But-
You have to basically base it on what's being used right now and what's going to be used that's, you know, firm.
They've already proposed, as you said, 65 residential units. That's easy to calculate. They have restaurant pads. That's easy to calculate.
I understand, but I don't think anybody, and David can answer better than I can, I don't think it's come into the office that there's an actual number that's been submitted, you know, with the totals, or it's actually been looked at as to where it really is at.
But
I haven't seen it.
But we need to know that before we approve further development.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but again, the issue of the change that you mentioned for additional residential units, that hasn't been approved, so you can't really focus that as a basis for your calculations yet. So you have to go by what's been approved at this point and what's currently
But
there.
I don't agree with that, because we've agreed and approved plans based on proposed uses of that property. So we know square footage, we know,
Right, that's what I'm saying. There's already an approved project, so you know what those numbers can
So-
be.
so
I'm saying
somebody needs to-
that the proposed change has not been approved, so you can't base numbers on projects that haven't been approved yet.
right.
Yeah, I believe the ruling of the ZBA last week was that this would be a major modification. They
Right.
turned down the minor,
Right.
so therefore it changes. What I'm trying to bring out, I'm not doing a good job of it, is that the 50,000 gallons per day was based on just the parcel without knowing what the real usage would be, because you don't know what the actual projects were gonna be.
Exactly. They took a,
They approved 50,000.
you know, they said, well, we'll take this chunk over here and you can, 50,000 gallons a day. Well, then pad 1 came, then pad 2 was proposed and permitted, pad 3 sitting there now later on, here it is. But in the meantime, well, we're gonna do the hotel and a conference center, and then there's gonna be a 99 and a Chinese place or jet, whatever that is, and and the
So
liquor
you're saying
store.
that the
And
50,000 gallons was approved well in advance to whatever projects were?
I think it was an agreement, I'm not sure if it
It-
was a sign that
I'm
would-
not,
they
I'm
would
not sure
guarantee them
either if it was,
50,000?
if it was in writing either.
I don't think it was.
It was all discussions from when the BDOD started, and they said, well, what about, we're gonna put this in, and that's when the 50,000 gallons came up.
Well, I don't,
So, I mean, if you take a look at, do you happen to know, may I ask the engineer a question, Mr. Chairman? Do you happen to know in Building 1, the medical building that's there, what the proposed rate was and what they're using? Do you know what that?
I know half of that. The proposed rate for Medical Office 1, because I have it in the information, is just shy of 5,000 gallons per day, 4,940 gallons per day. I know in terms of water usage, and I don't have the exact calculations, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,500 to 4,000 gallons per day, give or take.
Yeah, the sewer part of it is whereas I was heading, so.
Well, I mean,
But looking at that particular building, and then keeping in mind pad number 2, now pad number 3, your facility, you're calculating a number on sewage of what, 16,000 gallons, but you're only gonna use 5,000 or 6,000, 7,000, whatever the number.
correct, between 5,000 and 7,000 of water usage.
Okay, but again, to the guy off the street, if that pad is allocated the use of 16,000, it kind of leads the layman to believe that pad 1 and 2 each get 16,000. Where's the 50,000 coming? Now you got a hotel and you've got restaurants and everything else. It doesn't add up, is what I think is what I'm getting at in the back of my head. Now, I know you're only gonna use between 5,000 and 7,000, that's fine. If the other two big buildings, when the second one is, if they only use 5,000 to 7,000, call it 7,000, so there's 21,000. So there's the three big buildings use 21,000, and the front ones, it's a little more realistic. But I think you're on the right track, Mike, when you say, well, okay, well, in comes, who just got permitted out? Is it the 99? Is that who's moving there? So the 99 comes, well, what are they using? You know what I mean? You have to, someone's gotta be keeping track of this stuff, is what I'm getting at.
My concern is, I think this is a great project. I have no problem with the project. Thank you. My concern is, if we approve this project and the buildings that are already up are already using the 50,000 gallons, that's a problem. The second part of my concern is 80 Makepeace is a great partner with this town. Right now, they have a 50,000 gallon approval. Does that mean that once this building goes up, we calculate that we're at that capacity and we aren't gonna be able to allow them to build any more buildings that they've already contemplated? I think if the longer we let this go, the more problems we're gonna have at the end. I think it should be addressed now, where the existing buildings, it's easy to calculate how many gallons they're using, and then you have an engineer calculate the other proposed buildings and how many gallons they should use, and make sure that we're still within acceptable limits for the town.
Yeah, I'd have to do some research to see if that 50,000 was actually a written
Well, it's been
approval,
written-
or if it
it's
was a
written
number.
here,
It's,
So it was written somewhere else, because they didn't just make it up.
no, I understand,
I don't
I
think it
understand.
was- I don't think it was a signed, I do not believe, and John can confirm, I don't believe it was a signed contract per se. I believe it was just discussion, because I thought the BDOD, going way back even before my time, was that the town would provide sufficient sewage for the BDOD.
It was before my time, but
Yeah.
when I stepped in, there were all conversations.
Probably in George's time,
And
he's old enough.
Really would like
and
to.
the I that you referenced was not specific to their project, it's system-wide in general.
No, it's system-wide, because our concern is that, the state basically, once we hit, I believe it's 1.2 million gallons a day, we then get basically tested, and we have to supply information on a weekly basis, because once you hit, I think it's 75 or 80%, you're then on record as getting close to your capacity, and you have to monitor it constantly.
Had you made a specific request for sewer capacity for this particular project, or just going off the initial?
I don't
No,
think you have to.
right, this is all based off of the initial agreement that Selectman Slavin is referring to.
The proposed decision, we kind of anticipated, as you know, in every special permit, there's always millions of conditions that have to be addressed that you can't necessarily anticipate and cover. So what you do is you have a broad enough provision in there that covers that, and I would suggest that we have it, and I'd be happy to refine the language if you think it's appropriate, but proposed condition number 5 says the project shall be constructed in compliance with the regulations and standards of the Wareham Fire District and the Wareham Sewer Department. So again, it's, if we waited for every, approval, we, the starting point, you guys kind of are the green light for us to satisfy all these conditions, and
And I don't think we've reached critical mass as far as sewer goes. I think it's just a matter of reevaluating the project to know how much they can dedicate to you.
And what we'd like to do then is make that easy for you so that you have a condition that you know that it doesn't go forward until someone has substantiated, and I would assume it'd be to the sewer commission,
Well, I think
that
that's my
there's
question.
sufficient capacity.
Can we have our sewer commissioners or sewer department confirm current usage of existing buildings and then work with the applicant's engineer to show, prove your 5,000 gallons? And then we are gonna have to ask AD Makepeace, because they've got a number of other pads that have been approved, what the anticipated usage by each pad, because like I said, my concern is, I'd love to see this go through immediately, but if the sewer commission has already stated they're at 50,000 gallons, someone has to have a conversation and approve more.
I'm going to make a quick comment. I
Please.
don't mean to interfere. That I think the problem is going to be that the original, going way back, was that the town would provide sufficient sewage for them, so then they would fall back to that original, I'm not going to say it's an agreement, but an original understanding.
It's in writing.
I can't answer that. I think it was just a discussion and a,
I think a lot of the hearings on that VDOT were all just discussions and.
yes.
Okay, well,
In the
we'll provide
past,
enough.
Like the access road to the BDOT, you mean? Similar?
Yes.
Yeah.
In the past, when capacity issues have come up, it's usually been to mask other agendas, and I don't think that's the case here. I think this is something that everyone wants to see proceed, so.
Absolutely.
I think it's just a matter of them, if they're at the 50,000, just receiving permitting for more capacity.
I think again, it goes back to when the, Sanborn, whatever it is, the station down by the Deacon School, when that was done, Makepeace actually paid, I don't know, it was $500,000, whatever it was, to upgrade that, and then part of the reason for that was that they would then have capacity for the projects at, Rosebrook, et cetera.
Exactly. They came in and they said that they would take care of the pumps and to alleviate anyone's concern that they were doing any harm. And then if you recall the scuttlebutt when the Walmart project came in, they said, well, we can hook into that and make peace. No, I just laid out $500,000, you gotta get approval. So there was a little go back and forth there, so,
Actually, what happened was, in the negotiations, because I was involved, Walmart actually contributed $100,000 to an upgrade, et cetera, of that particular facility. So if we run into an issue with the water pollution control facility has on their books in their bank account $100,000 to work on that.
oh, okay, I just remember some back and forth on it, I wasn't involved with, I was out of office then.
Just for a point of clarification, is I want to know just what our job is going forward in terms of this particular issue of sewage capacity. If the condition was that it's subject to confirmation that there is sufficient sewage capacity for the proposed project, our perspective is if some future yet to be approved but proposed project creates a problem, that's a problem for that project, not for our project. So I would suggest to you, and it's certainly appropriate, that you kind of want to know what's going on. That makes sense. But again, I think you can cover that by imposing a condition that it's subject to that confirmation so that we don't have to keep postponing the hearing until Sewer Commission figures it out. Until they figure it out, we can't go forward. So if you're comfortable with that, I think that would be, it gives you what you need, which is we want confirmation that there's sufficient sewage capacity, but it doesn't necessarily hold up your approval because your approval isn't valid until you get that.
So,
Yeah, but
this evening, we are looking and to continue pending the review of this decision?
Yes.
And are there any other plan changes that need to be made? A final plan submitted with a plan date that we can reference with the changes that you didn't get a chance to incorporate?
Yes, but if I can suggest, based on what you've just expressed, it would seem to me that you certainly have available option. It might be the better option is to close the public hearing, subject to receipt of this information. You guys don't like that, I see.
We don't close public hearings anymore.
Well, no,
Option's been taken off the table.
yeah, I changed my mind. The problem with that at this stage is, you know, your presentation was, well, we got a March 8th letter, a March 13th letter, and here it is the, 14th, and we're just getting it. So, you know, as our council says, no, I'm teasing you. You know, we just got that, your findings and what have you. I mean, you know, it's kind of tough to read through 17, 18, 19 conditions and make sure that the few things were there. So, I would not want to close the public hearing. I would be in favor of, if you want like a poll of the board or whatever, but I mean, I'm in favor of it. I'd like to see you start down there tomorrow, but it's not gonna happen tomorrow. But I think you need to get the final two conditions onto the print. I think you need to have the prints dated with the findings and what have you, so the same dates are there. So when we make the approval, it's, we're not saying, okay, well, send it to us and we'll approve it in 2 more weeks. I hate sending guys out of here. I mean, it costs a few bucks to bring all these heads down here. So I hate to keep sending you off. And so let's just get the last 2 things that Charlie wanted on his latest letter. Get those prints all dated the same. Those will match the findings. And that gives everybody here a couple of days to go through the decision that you forwarded to us for review, without our own counsel having to go through it. And we can add to it or tweak it, whatever. And then when we meet again, we're not really looking for anything else from you, because now all the plans and paperwork is dated.
Just
Am I right, or is that where we're at, or no?
But I'm confused still on the sewer.
Yeah, you know what, you're.
I mean, I'm a newcomer to the town, I've only been here 8 years, so the BDOD thing was long before me. There's that, which I've tried to research a little bit, and of course, there's not good documentation for that. But my concern is, our applicant is trying to build a building, but they're buying the property or leasing the property from 80 Makepeace. Should we confirm what the current usage of the sewer is and get a letter from the sewer commissioners that there is no issue? Because I just don't want to see, and I know you said this is your proposal, but for me, we've looked at plans for 80 Makepeace for the property and approved pads for other things, and I know they haven't been presented yet. But their plan is to do that.
What other pads do you have down there?
There's
Well,
3 more buildings up
There's
above.
there's
with
3 or 4 more buildings
mixed
that 80
use.
Makepeace has already proposed, so
Yeah,
my concern is that we say yes to you, but we find that we're already at the 50,000 gallons, so now we've caused a problem for the town sewer department. Or maybe there's no problem, and the town sewer department, with your engineer, will say, with blessing, go forward. The problem is we are gonna have to address this issue later on with the next applicant for Rosebrook, or whatever, and I just don't wanna, my opinion is you never wait till the end. You address the issues that you think might be issues now, and make sure that they're not issues.
So I would, to accommodate that, I would put in an additional condition, maybe a little more specific. Would it come from the sewer commission or from the sewer department?
I would assume that it would come from the
Sometimes
sewer.
it's the board, sometimes it's the Board of Health, depends on the town, so.
Well,
Phil,
I
do you
don't
know?
know. I don't know who
think
makes those calls now, if it's
The
the
information would come, I believe, David, through the plant supervisor, Mr. Campina, would make a recommendation or an answer to the sewer commissioners, and they, as the commission, would then write a letter to the.
They would have to
I'd like to
take the action to increase capacity, correct?
Well, I'd like to see their letter include a current usage, that they're willing to increase capacity, because again, I don't want 80 Makepeace to be disappointed in the future when they've already used up their 50,000 gallon allotment.
Yeah.
I'm just, like
I would
said-
point out this is being purchased from AD Makepeace.
I know it is.
I don't think
That's-
they'd be selling us,
Condition on the purchase and sale agreement that they're providing sewer
Yeah,
for our.
so I think
so
if
I
we
think
can
it's more
get-
knowing what
Yeah.
it is, as
I think it would
opposed
be nice
to.
to know right now what, I mean, I'm fine with 5,000 gallons for your building. I'm sure that you've done your calculations, but I'd like to see what's currently being used to make sure that we're not gonna, maybe they're already at 48,000, and this is gonna put them at 53,000. I don't, I just am
If
concerned.
No,
that were the case, I would think they'd come back with a revised capacity of 70,000, but
Well, that's what I wanna see, though.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanna see. I wanna see a revised capacity so that 80 Makepeace can build this out and make it beautiful like they've planned.
No, I think we can accommodate that concern by putting in a condition that it's still subject to confirmation by the sewer commission that there's adequate sewer capacity for this project.
Yeah, I could live with that if he adds that condition. But, Mr. Chairman, can we get a request off to the sewer commissioners to have Mr. Campina, do a report for that property, for the properties down there? Again, the hotel, the 99, the Five Guys, liquor store, there's another
well, I think,
restaurant.
Another restaurant,
you,
bank.
you would probably be generating those numbers for him, right? And giving
That's
them-
right. What I'll jump in with is we're happy to coordinate with Mr. Campina, and we'll sort out those numbers
Please
to
do.
provide. And I think, just for clarification, if we find that we're obviously under the 50,000 gallons, we would seek Mr. Campina's, a letter from him saying, here are the calculations there, under the 50,000. If we're over the 50,000, then we would obviously have to coordinate then with the sewer commissioners and get some documentation from them that they're willing to entertain an increase in the sewer flows.
It's not-
Just to identify.
It's not them anymore.
That's true. Well,
It's not me.
sorry.
That's
Somebody
that's
with
the
as
confusion.
good a stature as you gentlemen. But I just want to identify who's the keeper of the record in this case, and I think because we have a permit, it would be Mr. Campina confirming that. If we exceed the permit, then it would be the sewer commissioners.
I think it's gonna, when it gets down to the capacity limit, I believe it's gonna be a little bit of a, I'll use the word sticky wicket, because it was, it's not a contract, I don't think it's a written agreement, and I really dislike when you have basically it'll be okay.
No, I would like something in writing
Yeah.
I mean, just
Definitely in
as an example,
from your firm as well as the,
it's really,
Mr. Campina.
it's really Makepeace that's giving them the piece, it's not them, they're just,
Right.
They seem willing to give things in writing when they shouldn't have, so I
Yeah.
don't see any problem with them doing it when they should.
Well, I think from our end, we're happy to do that. We'll
Yeah.
generate a letter and we'll get Mr.
I just don't
Campina.
wanna see
see
you
an
get,
issue.
I think
have
the
a problem.
issue may go back to your original
It's
point.
only
when
gonna take a week, I think, to
When the
get all
BDOT
this
was contemplated and the sewer was allocated, is there a letter that says, this is the number?
I think at least in the minutes and stuff, it's gonna say that
Yeah.
the town will provide, sewage for the BDOT, and that's,
I think if you call first thing in the morning, you can get on their
I've
agenda.
seen that
But
50,000
that was
gallons
a
before
commercial
this.
development, which doesn't use as much sewer, like the medical building under 5,000 gallons. So
But the
this is really a residential thing, and it's significantly more.
Well, the residential's increased also on the last three pads that they're proposing on the road.
the other pieces too, like on building number.
Anyway,
I'll just finish, building number 1, they put a dialysis center, and that was never contemplated for water usage originally.
let's get your minds out of the sewer and let's
Oh, I see what you did there.
I like that. It's good.
Go ahead, never mind.
again, if we could, do we need to do separate decisions for the special permit and the site plan?
Generally, no. A single.
It's filed as
reference.
one.
Right, it would be approval under both bylaw provisions.
Mhm.
You don't need two separate decisions, particularly where there's no judicial appeal on the site plan approval.
All right, then, so we have missions to accomplish, and we can continue to the 28th.
And what time, please?
We advertised them at 7, but probably,
28.
Yeah, can we do 7:30 or something?
yeah, 7:30 would probably be more accurate.
Okay.
So for that, though, when you come back, you'll have your plans finished, you'll have all the dates from your decisions and your conditions added in for Charlie's final letter. If we can get that off to Charlie, you can get it reviewed. By the time the board members review to the decision that you presented, there shouldn't be any delays. Because I don't mind telling you, right out, I'm just against coming back in 2 weeks and then sending you out of here again. I'm against it.
I don't
So I
foresee
want all
that
yours,
happening.
I want all yours, well, it just happens over and over and over, and I'm trying to get these guys to get us everything we need now. And I'd just like to see if maybe Dave or Alan or someone could get something from Guy to go through that with the engineer and get us a written report of what buildings are down there, what companies, what restaurants, and what they use. And then we'll go from there. Because I think in the future, if you say there's more pads there, Mr. Chairman, we could be way over the 50 grand. It's got nothing to do with them, but it could be way out of
Well,
whack.
I
so.
question how many pads are left
Well, there's still
myself,
lot-
but that's
Lot
another
2 at
discussion.
Rose- And you still have Lot 2 at Rosebrook, which isn't developed yet, but that's gonna be a large building.
Well, I guess it's a twin of Building 1.
That's right.
What's proposed.
It's a mirror, so it's the
But
5,000
Building 3
gallons.
was a mirror of Building 2. So,
No, that was a little different. 1 and 2 are twins of each other, but building 3 was always different because of the configuration.
And it was smaller.
Yes.
This is small.
all right, well,
Um,
I thought they were all the
And the
same.
number you gave was what, 3,500 for building 1?
No, it's just shy of 5,000 gallons for building 1. So by
What was-
association, 5,000 for building 2, and then. the
That's what
number
was allotted, but you said your actual was lower.
Was underneath that, yeah. So now.
That includes, that includes irrigation too, so.
Right. Let me put a pin in that. I'm not sure if irrigation is included in that. I think 80 Makepeace may have an irrigation well,
Oh, okay.
so, but
That's-
I'll
that's
verify.
possible.
That's on my task now, is so we'll verify these numbers.
All right, so you don't have a problem doing that with Mr. Campina and getting a list?
No.
And that makes, that'll make my fellow board members and myself a little clearer on what's happening down there to date.
Right, no, we'll happily start the process with Mr. Campino on behalf of AD Makepeace for the benefit of the application that's here.
Okay, yeah, 'cause I think Mr. Rowley's been pleased with the drawings and the response. I mean, I think it's a good-looking project. Can't wait for it to get done, so.
Right.
Just want to dot the
And
i's and cross the
I
t's.
feel that, the concern about the public hearing staying open is, there's no need for concern. I think everything will go smoothly next meeting.
Yeah.
We'll tee it up for you so you'll be in a position to make the decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there a motion made?
Make a motion to continue the public hearing to March 28th at
7:30.
7:30 PM.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would ask that the planning board make the request to the sewer commissioners. If the board of selectmen does it, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble before you start.
Do that, Dave.
Yes.
You're gonna be busy. You're gonna be
I
busy.
have to learn how to type. There's capacity for this project, so it's not the problem. It's something that might
Uh,
come later.
Yeah, but I don't want to worry about it later.
We wake
I
up
Then it
Mr.
becomes a
Carroll.
battle.
But their project has capacity, so they will be approved no
That's
matter
what I want to see. I want to see that there's still capacity.
There is still capacity.
Canning.
And
Canning Realty.
When I hit the head.
Now, as I recall, we didn't,
He got green cards in his hand, that's a good sign.
Looks like we completed our homework this time.
that just allows him to be in the country, the wrong green cards. Now, did we open and continue? I believe we did. So just,
You got a, butters list?
Am I missing? Look through there, see if it's in there. What is it they do here?
This is the original approval, if anybody needs to look
Ah,
at
I
that.
got it.
Decision.
Town of Wareham. Slocum Gibbs Cranberry Company.
Sorry, Town of Providence, I'm sorry.
So there's four.
Pass these out too.
And that's it.
Mr. Chairman, the cats are good.
Motion to continue then? Not paying attention, so. All right.
Geez, Mr. Keenan, you growing medical marijuana in these buildings?
Yes, sir. Until we get caught.
Plans? We got plans for everybody, or no?
Yeah, we got
Oh, okay. Floor is yours.
Good evening. I'm Timothy Bennett with Green Seal Environmental. Mr. Canning, I believe you know. This project is for the proposed addition to the Progressive Grower facility on Charlotte Furnace Road. I have the existing conditions plan, has 3 existing buildings, each 7,200 square feet. Is almost fully constructed.
How many square feet? Say it again.
7,200 each. He's proposing to add 3 buildings and 3 greenhouses to the site. So, So 2 of the proposed buildings are going to be the same size as the existing, 72 by 100, this one and this one. That's buildings, we're referring to those as buildings 5 and 6. Building 4 is 60 by 100, 6,000 square feet. 3 greenhouses, 42 by 130 feet each, or just over 5,500 square feet. The currently cleared area is about 4.2 acres. We're proposing to clear about another 1.7 acres of the 7-acre site. No additional pavement is proposed. The new buildings will be accessed by gravel driveways. Building 4 will be right off of the existing driveway, just constructing a ramp into it. Buildings 5 and 6 will be accessed by a 12-foot wide gravel drive, a little bit wider at the entrance, and then the greenhouses will have a 12-foot wide gravel drive around them, just for access and such. All of the runoff will be handled by 2 new rain gardens. Existing rain garden number 1 is here. Rain garden, what we're calling it 2 here. Rain garden here for this basically covers this building. This one here covers these buildings. We did receive Mr. Rowley's review comments from March 2nd. We have made some revisions to the plans in light of his comments. However, we have not delivered those plans yet. We haven't submitted them, as we wanted to wait for the results of this meeting before we make another round of revisions. So regarding his comments, in general, he had 4 comments that regarding the existing site, that the paved parking had not been paved in the previous phase, or the top coat, the final coat had not been put down. The reason for that is Mr. Canning was anticipating having the second phase fairly soon. And there's been some fits and starts with it, but we've you know, we're here with it now, so obviously the completion of the paving will be done with this phase. The other comment was in the same light, that the full landscape features had not been installed, and that's been held off for the same reason, that most of that work was in this area that hadn't been done, so it was going to come along with this second phase.
And
So
that was the landscape features that weren't done. There was, two grass strips along here and a little teardrop gardens. Those were the only things that weren't done, and there has to be some utility work and stuff to come back here, so those weren't done just because that was gonna be part of, I didn't wanna do something and have to tear it out again.
Was that communicated to Mr. Rowley or the planning board before this?
No, not prior to this. It's part of his current review, actually, that mentions this.
So it was a secret plan?
Kinda like the medical marijuana.
And his fourth comment in general was that much of the site that was originally disturbed when the site was cleared has not been dressed with loam and seed. And same response to that is that actually almost all of the site has, with the exception of this area back here and this where there's a large loam pile stored there. But the rest of it is all loamed and seeded. And,
Everything was dressed and cleaned and seeded appropriately, once again, just with the exception of where we were gonna be working for phase two. That was not seeded, but it will be, because it's, when all this is done,
When was phase two presented to the board? I don't remember phase two.
as part of the original plan, there was a phase two that was approved, and this is modifying phase two.
Initially, phase two.
There was, the greenhouses were there, but a different layout.
Was a research and office building here with a greenhouse over here.
I think it was more a conceptual
Yes, it was.
drawing as to how you were gonna execute it. It wasn't an approval.
But you've added 2 more buildings.
3.
No, originally it was 3 greenhouses in a building.
Exactly.
Now it's 3 buildings.
Now, we took away the one of the buildings and then added these. So yes, it's 2 more buildings and the greenhouses.
So what goes on in these buildings?
The lowest one on the bottom there, we pack and ship cranberries in the fall, fresh cranberries. And that building primarily will be used for that. And also, we bring them in and off the bog, and we clean them, wash them, dry them, pack them in nice little 12-ounce bags and ship them off to the grocery stores.
Which building is that?
That one there.
That one, okay.
And the one behind it is for storage, because you bring the fruit in, you gotta save it till Thanksgiving and Christmas. You need a place to keep it. You can't keep it outside, so that's storage for raw fruit. And all the packing will be done in the building to the left of that. The one up above, we pack in one of the existing buildings where we do our agricultural supplies. We blend and package seed and different things there, and that's for some additional capacity for what we're currently doing.
And then what happens in the greenhouses?
Eventually, when we do those, we hope we're gonna be growing hydroponic vegetables to supplement, because the same customers we sell our fresh cranberries to and the frozen cranberries to, they all have produce departments, and we hope to start, once we can develop that market, growing hydroponic lettuce and tomatoes and various other crops that we can turn around and sell year-round also.
And what happens in the yellow buildings?
The yellow buildings, the front one is office space.
Yeah.
And the back one, the back bottom one is where we're currently doing our cranberries now, but we're outgrowing it. We don't have enough space in there. And the one on the upper right one on the yellow is where we do our packaging of seed and different things.
And what kind of traffic comes in and out of there?
We get maybe 1 or 2 tractor trailers a day inbound. We ship our product out, and then we get our employees and some customers.
I went by the other day and there was 26 vehicles in your parking lot.
26 vehicles?
Mostly
Never
80
seen so
make-
many trucks
Mostly
on a
80
small
Makepeace.
lot.
Up in the office building, we have a conference room that we let people use for training sessions, and we offer training sessions to a lot of our customers and stuff on how to use the things we sell. So occasionally, you'll come along and see the parking lot jam full, because we have that's the only time we have
Buzz.
we have a,
Like,
What's the impervious surface?
okay,
we must have had a training session going on that day.
okay.
So,
That was right.
What's your lot coverage and impervious surface?
The
Where
only
are you at on
additional
that slope?
impervious surface would be the buildings, actually. So, don't think I have the math on hand, but I can certainly.
That shows that you got low up here.
Is that why you're not proposing any more paving, is because you're on the edge there, or?
No, not necessarily. I think it's just more.
From an expense point, I prefer to have hard-packed gravel than pavement.
Could I see one of those copies, too?
Can I ask questions, Mr. Chairman?
This was the original approval.
Oh,
You want the new one?
have you got one?
Can I
He's
ask a
got it
question?
there.
With the new buildings, how many more employees, and where are they parking, and where are your current employees parking? Because I couldn't tell when I went by, so.
Current employees park in the front parking lot, and then we've got a few spaces out back. We've, with the 4 additional employees, we're adding 6 spaces, which are marked on the plans, and they'll be out behind the existing buildings.
Okay. And how many employees currently do you have now?
There's 6 or 7,
Okay.
6 or
So you'll
7.
have 10 or 11 or 12?
Yeah, 10 or 11 employees when we're done.
Okay.
So the total new impervious surface of the proposed buildings is 36, a little less than 37,000 square feet.
I was looking for Charlie's letter, is that?
Yeah.
And in these plans, you've calculated how many parking spaces are necessary now, based on the buildings that you're presenting?
We have, based on
It's in your mail, actually.
Mr.
but-
Canning, there'd be an additional
I
4
just went through
employees
it.
at
I must have mixed
1.5
them with
space
something
per,
else.
that's 6 additional spaces we propose.
And how many does the town require for that size, for those size buildings now? And are you meeting the standards?
They're, yeah, they're warehouse buildings, so they're not per square foot, they're per employee. So it's a total of 6.
Can I make a comment? I love that you're building and you're growing, but when you first proposed your project, I was on the board at the time, and
Yes, sir.
and we weren't very, for lack of a better word, strict when it came to screening and plantings. I think at this point, I would ask that we look at that, revisit that again, because when I drive by now, your buildings just stick up and there's nothing there. And granted, there's no residences there, so that's why I think it wasn't as concerning before, but now that you're gonna occupy almost all of the 7 acres, I think it's time that we talk about that a little bit more, so I wanted to bring it to your attention so that you can think about it, because it's kind of what you do.
Well, it is. Now, screening from the road,
Yes.
the problem is I got, that's that, part of the reason of clearing it, because it opened up that corner dramatically and made that corner much safer than it originally was. Anything I plant there, as far as screening, because my parking lot comes out, and then there's the rain garden, so I'd have to put it in between the rain garden and the street, which is where we took the trees out, which, what made that a dangerous corner.
Right, no, I'm, not just that, I'm thinking about when you open up for your greenhouses and all your other buildings. Now, they're gonna be quite visible, so,
This here, there's trees in here.
yes.
This is a septic, so basically, we're talking about this piece right here.
Mhm.
Because this, I wasn't gonna take these trees, I was gonna leave these trees for a buffer.
Great.
So the fence line comes across, the gate's here, if you see where the gate is over here, the clear line was gonna go straight down that gate, that fence line, I was gonna leave these trees here. So really, it's just this little, this section right here.
That's where we had to put the septic system there because of the setback to the bogs.
Same with the far building at the top of the plan, you're gonna leave all that natural,
Everything's gonna stay, all this, we cleared something like this to open up the corner.
Yeah.
All this is staying.
okay,
The only thing we have to take is, this is already cleared, the only thing we have to take is this and for the rain garden, but all these trees are staying here. So it'll be, natural
I
buffer.
mean, you're gonna have 6 acres pretty much of cleared space of 7.
Yep.
So,
So are greenhouses an allowed use in a B-dog?
I believe so, because it all started as agricultural zoning.
Yeah, so what's the zoning approval for greenhouses?
I don't know, and if it's a problem, I don't have to do the greenhouses, it's something I wanted to do. But if that's becomes an issue, I don't have to do those greenhouses.
Well, I'm just looking at the BDOT, and it doesn't seem to be one of the uses. I don't know about the underlying zoning.
Could it be characterized as research into?
Yeah, I don't know.
Manufacturing and stuff, it fits in there. We had a discussion several years ago about that, when they put the solar fields were put in there. And my comment was, it's not, you're not manufacturing, you're harvesting. So having a greenhouse growing things does fit.
A greenhouse what?
Does, if a greenhouse is generating and growing product and stuff, it does fit the BDOT.
What
Huh?
category?
Yeah.
What category does it fall under?
It talked about manufacturing and things like that.
Manufacturing?
Yeah, generating, because the solar.
Like
the solar fa-
manufacturing, but a greenhouse isn't like manufacturing.
It's agriculture.
Yeah.
I don't believe there's a restriction there on that. I remember the discussion very well that we went back and forth with Attorney Cirque about the solar fields and what was allowed and not allowed.
Okay.
I lost.
Well, I don't think you should have lost. But, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, do you know off the top of your head how far this site is from the site of that building that we just approved a couple of weeks ago down Charlotte Furnace a little further?
It's quite a ways.
Is it a quarter of a mile?
Give or take.
More than that, maybe closer to half a mile.
Is it that close to the town line?
This is right at the town line.
Yeah,
We're at the town line.
they're at right at the line.
And I believe it matches up with industrial use on the Carver side.
Yes.
Right.
I don't remember how many.
Yeah, my problem is the same problem I had with it a couple of years ago, is he didn't want to do sprinkler, so he made the buildings small enough to beat the sprinkler. He proposed a building 36 by 60 and 60 by 84. Now he's in with 42 by 130 times 3 of them, plus another 7,200 feet, and there's no sprinkler.
Well, it's currently not served by town water.
Well, I understand that, but we're going back to the same comments is, let's say a quarter of a mile down the street, someone's gonna put in a building, he's gotta put sprinkler in. Well, you know what, you look at the expansion you have here, he's using every square inch of what he's got, God bless him, hope he makes millions. But sometimes you gotta put water in for sprinkler, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. So, I think you're squeezing.
Each of these buildings is 7,200 square feet.
Oh, yeah,
for a reason.
just by design. So I was against it when he first came in, but I went along with the board because I wanted to see business go down there. When I go by there, there's more trucks in there than I've ever seen before in my life, so I think the guy's doing pretty well. So again, God bless him, but quite frankly, I'm against the expansion. I think they put sprinkler in these buildings, like everybody else that's coming down the road, and that's what
Well,
it is.
anybody else can make the decision to build under the square footage.
Yeah, but even that doesn't, I know, just an example, a building in Buzzards Bay that's 5,600 square feet, and they're requiring a sprinkler system in the building. I mean, I know the 7,500 square foot is the guide, but, you know.
Well, you guys do what you want to do. I'm not doing it.
No, had you, some of the comments, had you had time to review any, like
Prepared to
the
address.
parking calculation and?
Yeah, I do have, I can address each individually in detail if you like, if you want to go through it. We did, like I said, we've made a lot of the revisions to the plans, the
printed it, Charlie sent
grading
it to us,
details
I
and things
printed it.
like that, the minor technical things. didn't want to issue another set of plans till we had this discussion here. So, as far as the impact statement, I think that's part of exactly why we're having the discussion, is, that Mr. Canyon can elaborate upon, what he's doing now and what he proposes to do. The other comments by Mr. Rowley were regarding landscaping, and noting the requirement for a landscape architect stamp on the plan. We have not submitted a request for a waiver, but I would like to submit one. We're proposing an additional 65 plantings as it is right now. I think we may consider some more screening plantings along the greenhouses, just based on some of your feedback now. There are no abutters that can see the site from their residence or business anywhere in any direction for nearly half mile. All of the proposed work is at least 80 feet from the road. In my view, the requirement for the landscape architect on the previous project we brought before you, the landscape architect reviewed our plan, suggested changing the name of a few plants, and stamped it, and it cost the client $1,000. I think it was just rather kind of arbitrary. Mr. Rowley certainly qualified, and I think some of the board members are certainly qualified to determine whether the plan meets the zoning requirements without actually having to be stamped by a landscape architect. So then we will submit a request for a waiver to that requirement. As far as his comments regarding parking, I think we just discussed it. Mr. Canning has 4 additional employees expected from this expansion. At 1.5 space per employee, an additional 6 spaces will be provided.
That's based on, what criteria are you using for that?
That's based on how many employees he expects. It's based on the number of employees in the building.
What business classification you're using?
Warehouse actually is the
But it's not, it's
classification of it.
processing, right?
Yeah, so it's processing in one of the buildings.
Yeah. Well, it's actually processing in 2 of the buildings, right? It will be.
Processing in
That's
this
why he's-
building,
that's
it's
why he's adding
storage in
buildings,
this building.
Because he's already outgrown the current processing facility, so there'll be 2 processing buildings and an office building, right?
Correct.
Well, your front building also has retail space, correct?
Yeah.
Right, and the parking calculation that was done for the initial approval was included. We provide a table that specifies exactly what
Each building.
number of parking spaces required for each use.
Yeah.
We'll quantify that and provide a total and everything.
Great.
We've actually done so on the revised plans, but
Yep.
I just looked at it today and it needs a little bit more clarification, if you will. Mr. Early's comments on the plans, sheet C1, there weren't any real comments. He actually did have some questions for me when I spoke with him, that some of the existing conditions, contours weren't exactly right. I actually went back out last week while I was there doing soil tests, took a few extra shots just to make sure that we had the contours right. So they'll be tweaked just a bit. It actually didn't impact the proposed grading at all. It just a couple of survey shots got missed when we did the first time around. Sheet C2, we've revised, you will see revised plans clarifying the limits of clearing. I guess we'd missed the north arrow, we'll add that. Sheet C3 is the proposed grading plan, which is actually the blow-up that I have here. Majority of the comments were fairly minor in nature, technical grading, where certain contours either didn't tie in correctly. That'll all be addressed, I think, to his satisfaction. I don't think I'll have a problem there. That was his sheet C. C3 items 1 through 6 were all grading issues. Item 7, we also spoke to that a moment ago, is the limits of clearing, or I believe we did. Limits of clearing, both the existing and the proposed, will be clearly delineated. Is he staying? Okay. His other comments, Would you like me to wait until he comes in?
The area to the right, is that delineating a bog road, or what is that?
This is Cranberry Bog here.
Mhm.
That's the 100-foot buffer. The bog road is right there. It's, you probably can't see it from there. It's in light gray, but the bog road does loop around back there. And there's actually an old connection through to there that's kind of grown in a bit now, but it is evident in the field and it shows in the contours.
Are any of those connections used? Nobody,
No, as a matter of fact,
I don't know where you get cranberries, if it's from Makepeace Dam.
no, the quads were cutting through, so the old connector road that came into the back of my property, Makepeace just brought an excavator and put a trench across, so they were, I guess, raising hell over there, so.
And his existing fence cuts it off as well. He does have a gate there, so he can get out to the rest of his property. But
Yeah.
I know I walked the site prior to the first construction.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
It's too late for that, though.
Noticeable crossings then, other than the
No.
deer.
I didn't know if that's where you get your cranberries from.
No, I don't.
Across the street's a little bigger.
His comment on number 8 on sheet C through C3, landscape features shown on the site are limited to proposed rain gardens and a few scattered trees and hydrangea plantings. And I think that we'll perhaps add some more based on what we've already discussed earlier this evening. And also his comment number 9 is about the planting islands that were removed for turning. I'm not sure, and neither Craig nor I had a memory of a discussion of removing them for turning. I did turn on the truck travel calculation that we did with the travel path. It doesn't impact either the planting areas that we had proposed or what we've proposed for new parking spaces now. I think it's just a matter of expediency that it didn't make sense to have a garden out in back of the buildings where no one sees it. You know, it's all pervious material there as it is, so it really wasn't a case of, you know, pervious versus impervious area. I think, so that's something that we're not showing them there at this point, and we don't propose to add them, so.
But weren't they there on your original plan?
They were there on the original plan, yes.
So that would be a request for a change, right?
So that, and I'm not clear on exactly how that works. I think some of Mr. Rowley's comments actually come towards the end where he speaks about, as part of your deliberations, perhaps include a motion that would allow for modification of the existing permit. And I'm not clear whether he intends that this project be a modification of that permit, because.
I think changing parts of the original permit, like you said, you're gonna take out those plantings, those were part of your original approval, so that's a definite change.
I see.
We have to determine if it's a minor or a significant change.
That's the first one, Bill Handy, first one.
It's a separate hearing.
Hmm?
Might be a separate hearing for that.
His final comment on that sheet, comment number 10, bare soils will be loamed and seeded. We did not specify on our previous iteration of the plans. It says there's no indication of what type of surface treatment will be given to other areas of the site that are not occupied by buildings or driveways. Bare soils will be loamed and seeded, and add a note to the plan to that effect. His comments on sheet C4. There's a question about the symbol EC noted along the lot boundary. It actually stands for erosion control. We had not put it in the legend. I've added an item to the legend that clarifies that, and it's erosion control. And there'll be a detail in the construction details as to what sort of erosion control, whether it be hay bales, silt fence, et cetera. Number 2 was the drainage areas shown are in sections of the site have not included soils investigations. No test pit logs are shown to indicate existing conditions. As I mentioned earlier, I did test pits actually this past Wednesday. You know, it's medium sand and coarse sand. There's all percolation rates of less than 2 minutes per inch. And I think a lot of his comments relative to the drainage, discussed that, that perhaps there'd be modifications if the soils were not as we had assumed. We did have the previous perk test results from the prior project to go by, so, but I actually took one here in this rain garden, one over there in that rain garden. Good, very nice soils, actually. Item 3, the sheet shows a new floor drain proposed in Building 5, and to tie into the existing tight tank in front of the existing building to the north. He's referring to this here, and the existing tight tank that is here. And actually, I'm just going to defer to Mr. Canning to discuss the reason for the floor drain and how it operates.
We have to wash the equipment every day that we use them for packaging and whatnot, and the same thing we do in the building we currently use, and that goes into a tight tank, which we pump, whether it's once a week or every couple of weeks. When it's full, the light goes on and we pump it. So same thing there, just the floor drain would tie into that same existing tank. So when it's full, we take our rinse water and we pay to pump it and start over again.
You have somebody come with a truck to pump it, and you have to get a certification for that?
Yeah, we've got all the documentation every time it's ever been done.
The next item was number 4, grading at the rear of the 2 existing buildings. In other words, I think what he's saying is that we're not showing any contour lines. It just, because we're using 2-foot contours, none show up in that area. I'll add some spot elevations to show the as-built spot elevations to the existing site. The next item is item number 5. Will there be any outside bulk storage on the finished site as there is now? Where might it take place? And I'm going to defer to Mr. Canning on that as well.
We had some bulk storage. We also mix some soil on the site for greenhouses that we sell. We bring in peat moss, bales of peat moss and bales of this and and we mix it up and then turn around and sell it. And we had some bulk storage, pallets of baled stuff getting ready for the spring was stored in the drainage swale because we were a little tight on space, but we moved it out of there and it'll all be behind up along the fence in the back.
And there'd be a lot less need for outside bulk storage with the additional. That's part of the reason for the expansion, obviously.
I'd prefer to have it inside. We just ran out of space.
Item number 6 is the existing site has a chain link fence surrounding the complex. The new site plan does not show it, or so we didn't show it very clearly. The fence will be expanded. I can point out where it's going to be, and so. Right now, it starts at the building corner here and basically wraps around the site and ties into this building corner here. It will be expanded to go around. Craig, you know what, I'm gonna actually defer to you guys. Get that plan in your mind as to where it's gonna go.
So there won't be anything in the front, once again, so you don't see the fence from there. It will start at the back corner here. It'll just come out along the property line, which comes right along, and it'll come back down and then join into where the fence currently is here. It'll just go straight down into the woods and connect up over in that corner, off in the woods.
Is that a black chain link fence?
I can do black in the, it's just a
galvanized?
chain link fence like the galvanized chain link like I have now.
The next section of his comments regards is regarding the drainage report, and all of those are basically tied to the soil investigations that we've just spoken about. We've done the perk test, they check out, so the drainage calculations don't need to change. I'm sure Mr. Earl would be satisfied with them. Next section of his letter is recommendations. And one of them we just spoke about a few minutes ago, that the board should, as part of your deliberations, include a motion that would allow for modification of the existing special permit. Reference should include the book and page where the original decision is recorded. I do have a copy of the recorded original decision. Initially, it was among the missing, I guess, but it had been recorded appropriately. Mr. Cirque actually pulled it out of him, and so I do have a copy of it if you want another copy of it, but I had forwarded it to Mr. Burchett as well. His other recommendations that site work be completed prior to an occupancy permit I don't think Mr. Kenny has a problem with that. It's not an unreasonable request. Requiring the site work under the original permit to be completed, other than any that we request modification, as we discussed. It's essentially the work that wasn't completed, other than those two small islands, was contemplating this Phase 2A, if you will. This Phase 2 was on the old plans that didn't, this is not the same. The final decision should include a provision, complete stormwater and operation and maintenance plans should be incorporated into the special permit decision. I have no problem with that. I don't know if would be necessary to have it recorded with the decision, but certainly as part of the file. But that's at the board's discretion. You can record it as well. The recording fee is the same, $75, no matter how many pages it is. A provision for keeping all the drainage swales and facilities free of debris, outside storage, and other interference. I believe that I believe that's part of the operation and maintenance plan already. If it is not, we'll definitely include that in there. And certainly if that's part of the conditions of the decision, that's acceptable. His item number 6 regarding outside storage, that its proposed location should be noted on the plans. We can certainly do that. We'll work with Mr. Canning to delineate some areas where outside storage would be appropriate if necessary. And I think that comment stems from seeing some existing outside storage that will end up being inside the new buildings. Item 7 was that any changes to the final approved plans should be presented to the planning board for review, and the board should determine if those changes are significant or insignificant to the final approval, and whether the permit would require modification as a result of the changes. We certainly don't have a problem with that. I think that in the past, when we got to a point where the board was happy with the plans in general, perhaps a few small technical details that Mr. Rowley and I were able to work out prior to the decision being issued. And I think that was actually his recommendation. If rather than have another hearing for a change number here or there, something, I don't know if that would necessarily be, but that's the board's discretion, and I think that Mr. Rowley probably would be able to comment on that further. That completes his review. The other attachment is a letter from him on October 9, 2014, discussing the items that required completion on the previous project.
On your original approval, it shows a rain garden just south of your front building. Was that constructed?
Yes, it was. Yes, it is. Yes, it was, and it is there.
I can't see it from here.
No, I'm sorry, actually, Craig, you're mistaken. That was part of the Phase 2. That was tied to the Phase 2 building. The rain garden to the south was one.
To the south of your front building.
Yes,
The yellow building, right
I'm
there.
sorry?
Yes, that's there.
I'm sorry, yes, it is there.
And the rest of your proposed development, that looks like as you go to the back, the whole site is depressed?
The roadway around the buildings is pitched away from the buildings. So it does pitch downhill toward the back and away to the sides as well, into the grass swale that runs around the outside of it, so.
So,
Now that we're finished, Mr.
oh, you done? What exactly will be stored outside?
We have pallets of baled soil. We have empty harvest bins that we store outside, the plastic bins that were about 4 by 4 by about this high. They're stacked all, you can't really see them. Most of it all is behind the building, so you can't see it. There was a few pallets that we put alongside in the drainage swale, which we moved out of there. You could see those from the road. We moved those.
I saw that.
Yeah, we moved those.
That's my problem, is why you're storing stuff in a drainage swale, and now you're gonna put in more buildings and greenhouses, where are you gonna put it now?
That's why I wanna put up a couple more buildings to put the stuff inside. That's what I was hoping to do.
So then you wouldn't have a problem with a condition that there's 0 outside storage?
0 outside storage seen from the road? I mean, can't I put stuff behind the buildings?
Well, that's what I'm getting at, is why aren't you putting it there now instead of?
I am. Behind the buildings is already full. I mean, we put more stuff back there, and now we can't hardly get around in behind, but we moved it because it was in the drainage swale and it didn't belong there. We were wrong.
Well, no, that's all right. I just mentioned to the board that, you know, back in the original hearing, you know, we approved 3 buildings. Again, I went along, I was against it, but I went along with it. 21,600 square feet for the 3 buildings. And if you look on the original set of plans, I believe you have them open, Mr. Chairman, he proposed 2 buildings for future Phase 2, which would total like 8,100 square feet. And you look at what's proposed now is 36,780 feet. He's proposing a heck of a lot more than he built the first time. So, you know, we have a real good business down there, obviously, because he's expanding. He's more than doubling his use down there, which is great. But you have an applicant that never finished the conditions on the first permit because he's worried about Phase 2. And then Phase 2 has blown way out of proportion. With the buildings and stuff that he's gonna add, some of the stuff will go inside, but you're still gonna be storing stuff outside. He's got a lot that's too small for his business. Obviously, he's very successful, and I wish him the best, but I think that 36,780 feet of more building, it's just, you got 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag down there. That's my 2 cents, and let's leave it at that.
How many parking spaces are proposed?
6.
So, a second question is, what about retail sales? Are there any retail sales done on the property?
We have customers that come in and pick stuff up out of the front building. So yes, there is some retail sales that are done there.
What do you mean, pick stuff up? I mean, what?
Well, they come in and pick up a bag of seed that, you know, we made out back. They'll pick up a bag of seed. They'll pick up, we have some complimentary products there, like shovels and things like that farmers use, and they'll come in and pick that stuff up.
What about peat? You mentioned storing, peat moss, or?
Yeah, we have bales of pallets of baled peat moss and baled various soils that we blend together and sell them to commercial growers throughout southeastern Mass.
Okay.
Not a sand and gravel type operation. We just, you whatever they want, you break them open, mix it up, put it in a dump truck and deliver it.
And that's all in the first yellow building?
The first one to the front,
Yeah.
where we mix soil and stuff like that?
No, that's where you sell stuff?
Yes, that's the only one in the front, yes, sir.
Okay. So, and then the lower yellow building?
Your lower yellow building is where we package our fresh cranberries in the fall, and we started doing frozen cranberries this winter, packaging them and selling them.
So, I'm just trying to understand how this operates. So, a truck comes in and dumps a bunch of cranberries. This is simplistic, but, okay, into that building?
Not necessarily, let's back up a
Okay.
step. My bogs are down in Sandwich, so I'll spend the day picking down there with a group of guys, and we'll load them in bins, load them on a trailer. The truck will come up here, we'll offload those bins into one of the buildings. From there, they'll sit there. I mean, that happens obviously multiple times, and the fruit will sit there, and then as we need it, we take those bins and move them into the other building to process them. When I say process them, we clean them, we wash them, we take all the stuff that doesn't belong out, package them into nice little pretty 12-ounce bags and ship them to Stop and Shop or Shaw's or wherever they end up going for the holidays.
Okay, so the lower building is basically storage. When you pick the
say
berries.
lower building, sir, the lower yellow one?
Yeah,
The
yellow.
lower, that's where we do our packing, that's where we do our cleaning and packing and storage in there.
Okay.
And the upper yellow is storage too.
Okay.
Where's
And
your
they come in bins, you said,
Bins.
4 foot or,
Like 4x4 by about this high,
okay.
off the bogs.
And then the equipment, the cleaning equipment is run them through a conveyor, I don't know how you do it.
Mr. Chairman, didn't we show you that way back when you did a walkthrough and I showed you the cleaning equipment? There's a bin dumper, you put the bin in, it dumps the bin, goes up a conveyor. There's fans that blow all the leaves and the grass out, and then it goes through a sizer, it takes out all the small ones, then it goes through some electronic sorters to take out soft ones, take out green ones, white ones, brown ones. Then they get washed, they go through a quick bath, and they go through a series of fans that dry them, and then they go through another final visual inspection to take out if there was any imperfection. Then they go and start filling bags after that.
There's a little
But the
machine.
old-fashioned screen house with the leather belts and wooden conveyors,
Exactly.
nothing like that.
All the old ladies sitting
You
there
mentioned
telling
frozen cranberries. You don't keep them frozen, you let them thaw, and then
No,
you...
actually, we keep them frozen over the freezers in Middleborough, because we water pick, we send them to another facility, because we don't have set up to deal with that. Receive water pick bulk trailers, go to the freezer, and then as soon as January hits and the temperature drops, so the building is
Cold.
below 32 degrees inside, we do the same exact thing, only we shut off the water, we bypass the washer because they can't get wet, but we upgrade frozen cranberries out of 1,000-pound bins, which is field run, has everything from whites and greens and lots of browns and everything else, and hopefully plenty of nice red ones. We upgrade it to just the red ones, package them in 40-pound boxes to go to bakeries. And we can only do that currently 8 weeks because as soon as it warms up, it doesn't work so well.
Yeah.
All right, so now the top brown building is gonna be what?
That's just gonna be just ambient storage, just storage.
Okay,
The soils and stuff you saw outside that we didn't have a place to put, products like that now can be put inside, so it's out of sight, out of mind.
okay, and the yellow buildings are gonna do what they're doing now,
Basically do what they're doing now,
okay?
and
How about
the lower brown one, will be a larger fresh fruit and frozen fruit line that we can actually operate frozen fruit year-round, so we don't just have to do it for 8 weeks. We can do frozen fruit throughout the summer, because we'll insulate that building and finish it off and put some heat and AC in there, so we can have a climate-controlled building. And then the back one, once again, is storage, because you just gotta store stuff inside.
Okay. Okay.
Your original plan, you showed two pads for trucks for loading off the rear two yellow buildings.
The two pads?
Yeah.
Yeah, and those were not put in. I came back before I was completed and asked for a modification, and you folks granted me that to not put those pads in.
But you still have a door there, correct?
We still have the doors. The doors are there, but
And
I
now
did
you're
not-
showing parking in front of it, is that?
No, on the sides of each door, not in front of the door, on the sides of each
Okay.
door. And there was those two teardrop gardens at all the way at the back, that at some point during this, not today, but there was the two little gardens, one here and one here. I'd like to come back at some point during the process for a modification to, they're at the back of the property, you can't see them from the front. Realistically, hindsight being what it was, I never should have put those on the plan originally, but they are on there, so I'd like to come back for a modification to remove those at some point in the process. And the same thing, there was two on the side of each warehouse, here and here, there was 2 3-foot grass strips that we put on the plan. But to put those grass strips in after the fact, they require water, they require maintenance, they require fertilizer, and they require mowing every week. So I did not put those in. We put nice native wash stone, a 3-foot strip, which I didn't come back to ask for a modification. So at some point, I would like to come in and ask those two things, ask for a modification on those.
And please remind the board why you asked to take out the truck pads. What was the reason?
Just the expense of the concrete, because those were put there for when we parked a truck there, so the landing pads wouldn't sink into either the asphalt or the ground. Those were put there, and just the expense, I asked not to put those in.
And you have bollards in front of those doors?
There's no bollards in front of those doors.
Weren't they required?
No, because we put the drains and the tight tank, which I would have rather put bollards in, but we,
But you put both buildings have tanks in?
both buildings have trench drains at the door that feed into a tight tank, so so the bollards are not required. And on the other buildings that, the two buildings that are not gonna have drains in there, they will have bollards in front of the doors to meet code.
Can you tell us about any night activity? Do you have any trucks showing up at night? Do you have any deliveries at night?
A few dance parties, but other than that, not really. I like to be home in bed.
Yeah, so nothing. You close and it's locked up.
We close and it's locked up. And we might work late, but when we work late, it's internal. It's not in and out work late. If we work late, we're there sometimes. Hey, I'm there in the office sometimes till 10 o'clock at night, but I guarantee I don't disturb anybody. But when we do, it's the building, usually the gates are locked when we're working late because we don't want people driving around. You might see 4 or 5 cars out front if some people are working late, and it's quiet, it's all inside, and we do not accept deliveries after we lock up. We just, is what it is.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? Can you just explain what you mean by training in your conference room? Is that at the top building right there?
That's in the front building. We do training on product training. We do different types of training for customers and industry. We do, I think the day the Makepeace trucks there might have been either a hydraulics class training, educational. We do computer training for customers. We do a lot of different types of trainings that we do for our overall customer base. And I wish the parking lot was full all the time like that, but when you see it packed like that, that's because there's an event going on, if you will, which is for 2 or 3 hours, we've got a class going on, teaching, and we bring in outside instructors to take care of that, because there's nowhere, there's no.
Class, do you think? What's your average number in the classes?
15. And we do that a little bit in the winter when it's quiet. Now that spring's here and it's busy time, we try to mirror our quiet time for our customers too, because there's no place around here that offers that type of training, whether it's even simple CPR training, all the things, OSHA training, all the things that our customers, insurance companies all require. There's nowhere around here that does it, so we kind of just treat it as a service, and we schedule classes, and if there's enough people, we hold it, and if not, we axe it.
Can you touch on what's on both sides of this property for me? I mean, I know it's vacant right now, but what do you know about each parcel on each side?
The adjacent parcel to the south, I know, is still owned by AD Makepeace, or some LLC thereof. As you know, it's all currently wooded, forested. It's all still part of the BDOD.
Yep.
Certainly potential for development there. On the Carver side, really abutting the property is Makepeace Bogs. Beyond that, I honestly don't know what the zoning is on that side or anything. I know it's all rural. There's no residences that I know of.
So that's not buildable.
I think the cover sheet of the plans does give a kind of an overall aerial photo of it, and it's really the cranberry bogs go loop right out, come up almost to the road as you get beyond the site, so.
Now, your existing buildings, did you have cold storage in there? I don't.
Sorry?
Did you have cold storage in your existing buildings?
No, sir.
I couldn't remember that. You're planning to add that to,
Well, we're gonna put some, heat and not cold storage per se, like, a freezer plant or anything like that. We do that off-site. We hire that, lease that square footage that we need off-site. That's, we got a refrigerator in the office.
Put one box of cranberries in. Questions? Comments, Charlie?
Can we hear from Mr. Rowley?
Just a question, I guess, for Craig and Tim. The existing holding tank that's there is for the floor drains in both of the yellow buildings?
Correct.
Have you discussed that with the plumbing inspector to find out if that is adequate for the size of the additional buildings? Because there is a line on the plan that says you're gonna tie in that bottom brown building into it. So is that tank big enough, or are you gonna have to replace it or add to it?
The, basically, the way the tank operates, it has an alarm when it fills up. They have to empty it.
How many times
Once a month now.
a month?
So worst case is we might have to go twice a month. It's a 2,000-gallon tank.
Yep.
We don't use that much water, but we just opted to go into the tight tank rather than go through all the permits to go into the, we're well below any thresholds.
You can't discharge anything on site anyway without a discharge permit.
I understand, that's why we went with the tight tank, so we don't have to, it's a non-issue, we pay to pump it.
And where does the water go?
Stays in the tank and somebody hauls it off.
And we have a file documented every time we've ever pumped it, we have the receipts and.
Oh, some company comes in and takes
A
it away.
licensed company comes in, they pop the cover when the alarm goes off, and they pump it, and it's over.
The only other thing I thought of, George, was, Greg had mentioned something about the two planting islands in the back, and, what was the second thing? You wanted to
Strips.
do-
The grass
two
strips along
so
the
we
side.
didn't have to maintain them.
I assume that this process really is a modification of the existing special permit. So, they're small items, why not deal with them right now? The landscaping in the back, instead of saying, no, you don't need them, how about supplementing the landscaping in the front with what was gonna go in there?
We talked about that before you got here, and, I mean, I don't think your site's very attractive at all, so, and we talked about it, trying to screen it as best we could.
I don't
you
know
know,
why you couldn't
in
take
your-
care of those two issues.
in your
as part of
initial
this,
Application and process, I think the board was very lenient. You know, we didn't really require a lot of parking, lighting, landscaping. We were trying to get you going and in business. I think at this point, that is probably gonna tighten up a little bit, depending on what the other board members feel, but I can tell you that I think it's not an attractive looking property at this point.
I'm crushed.
Well, the buildings, you know, I hate
Put my
saying it,
heart and soul into that, boss.
I think the buildings proposed don't quite look like the ones that showed up, but they look close, I'm sure. I can't recall everything, but
I'll beg to differ on that one, because that's exactly what I presented, but
I think, you know, at this point, Mr. Rowley did mention that we should incorporate whatever changes from the first approval to the second.
You want plywood siding?
Huh?
You want plywood siding?
Split rock, block.
Who does delivery? You have your own bogs, you bring in your own berries?
Yeah.
Is anybody else, do you do this for anybody else, or is this just yours?
yes, I have some other growers that bring fruit in to me. I mean, I'm certainly not Ocean Spray. So, but yeah, a couple trucks come in with some other fruit.
In bins, same kind of
Bins,
things?
Same way in bins.
You're limited by the amount of people that are doing fresh fruit, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just, I probably should have started some of my commentary with the basics of the zoning information, actually to address some of the comments we've had. The maximum allowed building coverage in this zone is 25%, and we're at 22.7% with the proposed structures, so we're still under what's required by zoning. Maximum floor area is 0.75, we'll be at 0.23. And the maximum maximum impervious surface is 65%. We're gonna be at 26%, or remain at 20%, or be at 26%. So I think we're well within the thresholds of what's allowed by the zoning in this area.
If you paved all of the area that you're showing around the buildings, what percent would you be at?
I couldn't tell you, but I can get the answer for you. I'm not that good an estimator, and certainly not that as good as that.
What makes it so open is because there's so many trees and all of a sudden it just jumps on it because there's always trees there.
Right.
Do it this way, someone's in traffic.
What is the zoning down there, Charlie?
It's R60.
Yeah,
The underlying zoning is R60.
Mr. Rowley, can you touch on lighting, exterior lighting? I'm looking at new parking spaces down at the entranceway. I know now there's wall packs, I'm sure, on buildings for lighting, but what needs to be considered for lighting for those remote parking spaces now?
Quite frankly, I think whatever is on the building would be sufficient, because if they're not used for, if they're just the employees, and really nobody else is gonna be required to be back there, if the retail spaces in front are all that he's gonna use for people coming in and out, and they close up, what's your closing hours, Greg?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. I would think that whatever lighting is shown on the plan that is attached to the building and shines down on the building should be sufficient for that.
But these 10 aren't there. These are
I understand.
over here next to the proposed greenhouses, so.
Right.
If you put lighting on the front retail office building and tried to shine it that way, you could adversely affect the street, right?
Depends on which way you
Yeah.
put the deflector on it, and you might not see the intensity of the light itself. If there was a lot more retail activity coming, going, and you're open after, say, 5 o'clock, even when it gets dark, you might want to do a little bit more than that, but his operation doesn't seem to lend itself to a lot of lighting going around the facility. Certainly for security lighting, he needs that.
Sure.
Which he's showing.
So what do you need, what do we, for information here? Other concerns, anything?
Concerned about the greenhouses, are they not part of the B-dot, are they part of it?
I would have to check that myself, I don't know. Do you know if greenhouses are allowed use in the BDOT?
I'd have to check the specific wording, but it's more the, it's not the building itself, but it's the use of the property. I'd have to go through the book, which.
So it'd be an ancillary use to the main use?
Well, it depends on what he's doing with it. I assume he's growing plants there. But the BDOT district.
Just medicinal?
Allows for agricultural use. No, not that one.
We already talked, he wasn't here, Charlie, you missed that.
But it does talk about ancillary uses that are attached to agriculture. Right, David? I think.
Yeah,
That's my reading of it.
Yeah,
we'll double check it.
but the retail part, probably not.
Bob, can I borrow your book for a second? I'll just take a look at it.
Zoning bylaw, page 27.
27?
Yeah, and 28 has got the agricultural mention.
Is like I said, there's quite a grade change in the back of the site. So I would think visually, that's gonna screen a lot of that rear building, just because it's gonna be, I can't see the elevation from here, but
But they're gonna cut out most of that.
That's gonna be in the trees.
Top of slab on that one's 77.
and the property line is up around 85, isn't it?
These are 81.
Yeah, but he's gonna grade all that down. Yes, he is.
Greenhouses are a little higher at 82, but it's third floor.
This one will be graded. What's back there?
But it does drop off. Back here is like 74.
But I think the high point is up in the 80s, isn't it?
Up in here,
85
yeah,
or so, 86?
There's an 86 right here. There's a bit of a knoll there. It's not really defined knoll. It's fairly rolling.
I kind of remembered it as being fairly flat when I walked it a few years ago, but
Yeah, it's a little more terrain or relief over on this side. There's a bit of a swale or a saddle that kind of runs out toward the bogs from there, but there's kind of a high spot in here.
I'm just thinking that should this site to the south be developed, it will be partially screened by the elevation change.
It will be above this site, I believe. It'll be.
I mean, this will kind of,
And the lower end will be below the site, won't it, Tim?
Excuse me?
Contours on the lower part of the site, you're actually digging into the hill at that point, right?
Correct, yeah.
Mm.
We're cutting into the.
So it's
Side
inside the hill, you might say.
so it'll mask some of the building.
It will.
Yeah, the new buildings are the same height as the old buildings, right?
Yes, sir, the two back ones.
Just for clarification on the allowed uses, under site plan review, item number 2, it says light manufacturing, processing, and assembling, provided such uses are not offensive, objectionable, or injurious to the abutting residential areas because of excessive noise, vibration, smoke, fumes, odors, and other obnoxious features. And then over under special permit uses, prohibited uses, retail sales, except as may be accessory to the above allowed or special permit uses. So long as his retail sales are considered accessory to the light manufacturing, the processing, the berries and so forth, it seems to go together.
Additional information, more questions, what do we got?
Just as much as they can do.
I don't know if you had an opportunity to go through my report that I had submitted. I made a comment in the impact statement that they had attached a letter
Yeah.
from Vanass that was directed toward that Millworks project.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 30.
I guess it's supportive evidence, but there's nothing in that letter that pertains to the traffic that's generated from this site, either now or in the future. So that's a question that I suggested there. Also, the bylaw in Article 10 requires any project expansion greater than 5,000 square feet to be stamped by a landscape architect.
Right.
So you need to consider that with the fact that I don't see the stamp on the plans, or at least the ones I got weren't. And there were some things on the plans themselves that I felt were incomplete in terms of some of the detailing. So I'd like to see those things addressed, some of the grading. They're minor issues, but the contours you're looking at are 2-foot contours. You can get a change in elevation, and you may think you're okay, but you're really not, because you haven't shown the details sufficient. I'm a little concerned about those buildings on the south and the greenhouses, that there should be a swale across the front of those, which is one of the contours that stops short of it. So I want to be sure that there's no water coming off that parking lot that'll find its way into the entrances, that needs to be picked up before you get there. So I'd like them to take a look at that. Drainage report, I don't really have any issues there, except we've got some new drainage areas for which there were no soil tests involved. So we want to be sure that the bottom of those drainage areas has got clearance between that and the high groundwater. I know it's not an issue with the height of it compared to the bog, but at some point, those tests should be done in those areas to verify what we've got, otherwise you're looking at a change in the design. So that's important, I think. And then there were some recommendations that I put at the end of the letter, which you can maybe consider for incorporation into the special permit.
There was some conversation earlier about the landscape architect. Is that, that's in the bylaw, so that's nothing that we could waive?
Correct.
Is that a subsurface drainage on the, between the greenhouse and the road?
This?
That's right here? No.
No, that's park.
That's park.
Those are the 10
Oh.
spaces I was asking Mr. Rowley about.
Oh, okay. Look like little circles from here.
No, they're gonna just use stone. They're gonna put stone around, stone parking, so that won't be paved.
Put some nice rhododendrons out there so the deer can come across and eat George.
Now, how do you mark out the parking spaces on the gravel?
I'm sorry?
How do you mark out the parking spaces on the gravel?
We got an extra big can of spray paint.
Go out there after every snowplow. You could
Really?
mark it with bumper strips
Mm-hmm.
at the head of each spot.
Just shows,
We
It
should
shows
probably
bumper
do so no one inadvertently bumped into a building anyways. We could throw some of those bumper strips down in front of each one. That's a
we
good
showed
point,
them on
Chuck.
the plan,
What's that?
or shown on the plan
Yep.
already.
I figured you wouldn't mind.
Can you work with somebody looking over your shoulder?
Sure. Say when?
When does it show the private well? Does that show on?
The well on the plan? I'm not sure where it's located. I'm sure, the well's noted on one of the plans.
Right there, right just to the north of Building 6.
W.
Can it be that close to the building?
10 feet. I think we have it more than that, but I don't think there is actually a setback from a well to a building.
I think so.
I mean, I always use 10 feet as a rule of thumb, just
Just
Makes
can't put it inside.
I know places where they're inside.
same here. I've drilled one inside by hand. It's no fun.
In most of West Wareham, they're inside.
Don't want to get them wet.
Don't want to get wet when you pump it.
What do you have currently and what are you gonna add?
A break room in the front building,
Office retail
Yeah,
building?
there's a break room in there, and there's bathrooms in there, and there's bathrooms in the back, the lower yellow building, there's facilities in there, also, and a smaller break room.
But you're not proposing it for the new buildings?
Negative, sir.
Jim's.
Go ahead, Jim.
Check that with the Board of Health to make sure they're happy with that?
I'm sorry?
Have you checked that with the Board of Health to make sure they're happy with that?
No, no, sir.
It might be advisable to do that before you get too far.
Okay.
Not knowing what's in there or what they might allow, it's probably safe bet to do that before you get too far beyond where you are right now, just to be sure. They're gonna have to sign off on the application for the building permit anyway.
Yes, sir.
So they're gonna end up taking a look at the plan. They'll wanna know what's in it.
Well, anyway you're processing, you're gonna have to have hand wash facilities and,
On the plan, could you mark each building on what it is? Can you revise your plan a little bit? Can you just put, you know, like the front building's retail and office, and what's gonna be processing after the build-out, and storage, and just so we know, and you're gonna delineate the outside storage anyway, so, just so that we know. And then, I'm sure you'll tie that in, once you figure that out, to parking spaces, to make sure it meets the requirements. And the greenhouses are just seasonal, right? I mean, the ones that you've shown us a picture of?
Once I do them, they'd actually operate year-round.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
They're gonna be heated, Craig?
Yes, sir.
wow.
Takes a little more gas in the winter.
Oh, yeah, a little more.
Fortunately, there's natural gas there.
does it go up that far?
I tied into something. Yes, yes.
Do they know?
I haven't got a bill yet.
Hey, there's pellets right down the street, right?
They have a tank farm, they're gonna do material,
Oh, really?
you know, the basement.
I don't know whether it comes up or actually comes down from the main line. I don't know which way it comes, because I think further down there was, someone said it wasn't there, so it might come from the other direction. I don't know, but there was a main in front of the street, so.
Yeah, I just didn't know it went up that far.
Remember, the tank farm used to be across the street when they first built Charlotte Furnace Road. Then when the gas came, they took the tank farm out and they connected the lower village on that
Okay.
main.
But I thought it came from 28.
Yeah, it did.
Well, it comes from somewhere. That I know.
It's a pretty substantial line. I think it was a 10-inch line.
It would've been nice if it was propane, but you know,
Well, the Algonquin line crosses not too far from there, so.
Just north. Yes, sir.
that's on the other side of the reservoir.
All right then. So, what else we require there? The few comments that Charlie has outstanding, perhaps some of the landscaping you're seeking relief from, if you could redirect that maybe to the front of the building and dress it up a little bit. But I think it looks a little barren out there when you, I know some of that's because of the sight lines, but.
Yeah, and some of that landscaping hydrangeas are pretty in the summer, but they don't hide anything in the winter. You could take a look at what options there might be. Would like to close that site in a little bit. Less of a look.
I'll consult the landscape architect as for what would be appropriate.
Tell them to spend freely.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, it's nothing.
I think his fee's the same no matter how many plants there are.
Saving so much on paving, he can.
What will you be using, crushed asphalt out behind around the buildings?
Whatever we used last time.
Process.
Well, I don't remember, it was not crushed asphalt, it was,
It was reclaimed material. It was reclaimed asphalt.
was it?
Yeah.
It was recycled, yeah.
Which, after a few years, becomes impervious anyway.
I wouldn't wanna dig in it.
No.
That's what I would be looking for.
Entertain a motion, close public hearing?
Are you ready to close? You just,
No, never again. Never.
Continue till the 28th, we want to do, same day?
don't want to make that at 8 o'clock, just to try to provide some spacing.
Fencing, right. A what?
Well, we made the last one for the 28th at 7:30.
Yeah, 8:30?
Well, you don't want to be sitting here waiting for the clock to swing around either.
Still got the other one.
I know. We have the other people waiting for Mr. Rowley.
What's your pleasure?
Yeah, I think we can do 8, because they don't have a big contingent
No.
from the neighborhood, so
Mhm.
I'm okay with 8.
So the motion is to continue the public hearing to the 28th at 8 o'clock. Is there a second?
Second? Oh, was my motion, sorry.
Second.
All in
Any
favor?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So moved. You doing an additional packaging line, or you just moving that one old?
A little bit of both. There'll be some new equipment and existing, plus some new equipment that can handle a little bit more. Thank you, folks.
Thank you for your time.
Charlie, we had a question earlier on it, on an A and R.
I talked to attorney wherever he went. On the Walmart
Yeah,
plan? Yeah.
should that Mylar demonstrate the creation of 2 new lots and not show that underlying subdivision that was previously approved?
I can remember having a very brief discussion, not on that one, but on the subdivision plan that my office did that went up into where Target and Lowe's are. We did a subdivision plan for that essentially was the zoning freeze for that area to allow that project to go forward. We did the same thing for Scott Robertson on the Walmart piece. And I don't recall what the attorney said about that. The fact that there was a subdivision did not prevent them from going ahead with a site plan for that same parcel. The thing I don't know is what the conditions of the original subdivision approval were for Denali Drive, that little loop road that goes in there that creates those. I assume it was the same as you've always done, where you had a 2-year limit on the build-out of the subdivision, and if it wasn't done within a certain amount of time, that it was null and void. I don't know that for a fact, that was done. But even if it wasn't done, there's no reason why those inner lines of the lots could not be removed, and a new lot line around what was known as the out parcel, why that couldn't be done under a Form A and leave Denali Drive in there if it still exists, or if it doesn't exist technically, just wipe it off the plan, and essentially you will have then 2 lots. One would be the big lot that has a Walmart building and the most of the parking, and the second lot would have an area unto itself and would be defined by that blue line that they showed on their plan.
Yeah, well, that's, may I, Mr. Chairman? Charlie, that's kind of why we had put them off until you got here. I kind of thought the same thing. I think Mike was on the same page, that the 2 lines that were hashed, which literally showed 4 lots, if you took those off.
You could, I believe, yeah.
Right. But the designation of those lots could stay the same in a title block down below or something. Just tax purposes, I mean, they're all gonna come in looking to who's paying what.
Well,
So
what
I
you-
understand that.
What you would do in the title would say, redivision of lots 1, 2, 3, 4, Toby Road. whatever the title may be, or put a note on it that says this plan eliminates the internal lot lines that define lot 1000A12 or whatever it is. Put a notation on the plan to that effect. And then whether Denali Drive remains or it doesn't, that's something that they can look at. I did talk about the possibility of them withdrawing the application for the Form A, though, so that they could revise the plan, because it's got some things on there that maybe you don't need to see, and they'll want to take off whatever lines they can.
Well, let me ask you a question, Charlie. What would be the problem, and I had asked, and I know the other members also asked to wait for you, and I had asked to wait for you, just for the clarification, that if the two hash lines came out, and then there were two notes, and I don't know, number 2 and 14, or whatever they were,
Yep.
as long as they clarify that it shows now 2 lots, is there no way of approving it and just having them correct the Mylar and you check it and then we come in and sign it? Or George would sign it anyway, we wouldn't sign it, but you know what I mean? Instead of putting it off. It's been explained for years that there's gonna be 2 lots, so everybody in the town knows they wanted 2 lots. It's just getting there with getting these lines off the plan is what we were asking.
I think Mr. Wall maybe should speak to that, though, because we had a discussion out there about the special permit that the ZBA issued for that project. And I don't know what the impact would be in terms of the percentage of impervious cover and so forth on drawing a new lot line. For the purposes of that plan, it was all one piece.
Right.
And the purpose of this plan now, I think, was to make sure that the parcel that they're showing in blue has sufficient space to cover the density issue with respect to impervious cover and so forth. So I don't know what that does to the special permit, whether it's anything you need to be concerned about, but if I were redrawing the plan, I might want to look into it a little bit, and go ahead.
If I could address that for the record, Brian Wall, for the applicant. We're working in conjunction with the lawyers that are representing Walmart, and about 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was a 2-hearing process where there was an appearance before the zoning board, and there was also an appearance before this board for minor modifications to the permit. So the special permit has been modified to reflect what we're asking for here,
At zoning it was modified.
and before this board too.
Well, you are modifying a lease line, which really wouldn't affect the impervious surface count. Now that you're creating a separate lot, it does affect it. So you've stated that Walmart still has enough to stand on their own as well as this parcel, but I think that would be the only thing that we need to confirm as far as the special permit goes.
So long as creating that as a separate parcel does not violate the terms of the special permit, I see no problem with it. And my suggestion to Mr. Wall was that whatever the zoning board agreed to and whatever decision they entered into on that date, that a simple reference to that effect be put on the Form A plan so that you've got a connection between the two. And other than that, if it satisfies the terms of the special permit, then I don't see why it can't be done.
Yeah, let me ask you, I had stayed out of all those just because we would bid Walmarts everywhere, so I never went to a hearing. I stayed out of it all. But the first lot, it's the second lot over on the right that they're trying to form into a lot now. That was always shown as a lot to be leased.
It was a lease, it was a lease line, or called the out parcel. It never had real definition in terms of a separate lot.
Okay. And your concern is that now that they're gonna make it a lot instead of a so-called out parcel, what changes? What's the question?
Well, there was a plan which I think might have come to this board for site plan review for the out parcel.
Right.
Yes.
And creating a separate lot like that requires you to look at and conform to the requirements for the impervious cover, the amount of building space, open space, pervious surfaces, and so forth. So that's one reason why the lines are being modified to show the way that they're shown on that plan.
Right.
My question was, what does that do to the remaining land where Walmart is located? And is there still sufficient pervious cover on that site to satisfy the requirements of the special permit and not put that in jeopardy? That's all.
Well,
I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Yeah, just looking at it, just for years listening to Kenny Ferrera, God rest his soul, but the parking area and all that stuff was all laid out for Walmart, and they got down to a certain corner, and they said, okay, here's a lease line, and we can always do something added on. That's always from the beginning, so something leads me to believe that Walmart's fine.
They may be.
I'm just
I
saying
have
that-
no
that, you know,
way of
my-
telling one way or the other.
Yeah, so I guess, so who would check that, Charlie? Can you check that, or does the attorney need to check it?
I think I think Mr. Wall, in talking with the attorneys for Walmart, could probably verify that.
And could I interject at this particular point? I think these are all very good questions. And I have two comments to make. First of all, the amendments that were made to the special permit for zoning were directed, as I understand it, because I didn't represent Walmart, on this precise issue to make sure that Walmart would be fine as a result of this. But maybe we're overcomplicating this, because my second comment would be that normally when there's an A&R presented to the board's concern is not to ensure compliance, but to make a statement on the plan that says that this endorsement is not any kind of zoning determination. So rather than try to figure out all these complicated things, can't we just simply say the board's approval of this plan does not affect in any way the existing special permits and zoning, and leave it to the...
I think I think the board would be putting itself on a limb to make that kind of a statement, but if it simply says it's not making a determination as to zoning or compliance with zoning, that might be appropriate to put on
I
the
think
plan.
that's already on the plan.
Yeah, I wouldn't make any statement that it complies with the terms of the special permit, though.
Well, maybe I misspoke. That's exactly what I intended to say, is to say that this endorsement is not intended to say
Okay.
that there's any compliance.
I don't-
There's
I
no
don't see any-
determination.
I don't see any problem with that.
Okay.
It has this.
My only question was, the way the Mylar was drawn, it left the old lots on the plan, which they're really not. You're only subdividing, I don't remember the numbers, but the third
You're
lot.
subdividing the largest of the three lots that were shown on the original plan, is what you're
Right.
doing.
Right.
So really, you're modifying the area of that largest of the three and putting a new area with it and a brand-new area for the piece that's identified by the blue lines.
Yeah, so my question was, and waiting for you to ask the question this evening was, the way it's worded in one of the conditions, it's 4 acres over on the right and 97,000 feet or whatever the number was to the left. You can always leave the 3 lot numbers that are on the left, take the lines out, which now shows one big piece of land of 97 or whatever. You can leave the lot numbers down below for book and page or whatever it is you engineer guys do. I'm just saying, take it off the plan, so when someone looked at it, it didn't look like 4 lots, when the notes say it's 2.
Well, they're not a lot that could come back at a later date to haunt us.
Yeah, you know, technically, you're
It's-
right, but
It's hard to see from here. Are they shown as dashed lines?
They are, and we have no problem taking them off. The intention of this was ironically to clear up the taxes, and that's why I think that the lots were actually shown on there to show that they're going away. This is drawn as a solid line, and these are dashed, and they're highlighted by the colors that we use to make this simple, but the actual plan that you have before you, you can see there's a dark line here, and these are lighter dashed lines. They're intended to go away, and if it will make the board feel more comfortable, we're happy to amend the plan to do that.
Perhaps if a notation was put on the plan that says, you're gonna end up then with 2 lots.
Yes.
So that the first lot will be the blue lot, we'll call that Lot 1 for the sake of argument, and Lot 2 is gonna be the balance of the land. And then you could say that Lot 2 comprises whatever those old lot numbers were
those lot 3 numbers
on
are.
the
yeah.
original subdivision plan, except for the blue piece that has a separate area.
That's what I had said earlier, but I didn't think I was explaining it correctly to my fellow board members, so I said, well, let's see if Charlie says if we can take the dotted lines off, you know, they can do that and bring the Mylar in and then George can sign it. I hated to see, you know, and then they've hung around since 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I appreciate it, but you hate to send someone away if it's something simple that you know that they're just gonna do this or that, and we feel more comfortable with your 2 cents.
I would say so long as they put the appropriate notation that you're not making a determination to zoning and adjust the lot numbers so that it makes some sense with what you end up with, that you could do that if you choose. I think you said it was filed with the town clerk when?
February 23rd.
So you might want to vote to endorse it tonight, get the changes made and
Well, that's
and
why I
bring it
asked
in.
them, you know, I was hoping they stayed. Mr. Chairman, does that work for you? If they correct the Mylar, get it into you, we vote on it, and you and Charlie check it, and whoever signs it, you and Mike or whoever.
Certainly.
Because you can't continue your Form A plan. You've got to make the determination within your 21 days of submittal. And
Do you have a question now?
Yeah, when Charlie's done. Question goes to Charlie as well. The original plan had 4 pads, you know, for 4 restaurants or drugstores or whatever. My question goes back really to the Board of Selectmen. We did a special act to get a liquor license for a particular location there. If you break this out and change things, it might be an issue because we had to specify an address and a,
Lot number?
yes.
Well, okay, that's a good question, but I believe during those discussions for that, if a restaurant was coming or whatever for a liquor license, it was considered the out parcel, which is now becoming Lot 1. So it's still the same. You follow me on?
Is the out parcel covered?
Depends on how the,
all 4 of those pads that were put in the plan?
Yes.
I believe it did, yeah.
I just want to make sure that the Robinsons don't,
Cut themselves out of something, yep.
because I can't go back and change that license from the state. It specifies, they actually gave it a number.
Does the out parcel, Counselor, does the out parcel have a lot number? Or,
Or an
you know,
address.
like the others have 1,000, 1A and 1B and one's,
It does, but I think it's part of one.
Yeah, it's the right-hand
Was-
lot,
yeah.
1C.
Because it wasn't a separate lot before.
I believe they gave either street numbers or something.
A1C is the out parcel and the remaining of the Walmart. So we've
Right.
got to check that before we go change numbers.
Yeah, you can't change the number that the Robinsons gave me to file with the state for the special permit, which they have.
And if I may ask, I heard you say it has both a lot number.
I'm not positive. I believe I had to have, the state requires me to give an actual address.
Okay.
So the Robinsons would have given me probably an actual, you know, 20, whatever the road's gonna be, whatever. It could be like number 25. So
Okay.
that particular pad is authorized for a liquor license. None, the other 3 cannot. I just don't wanna mess them up. And I can't fix that if they change it around.
I'm pretty sure, Ellen, the configuration of that lot is exactly the same, with the exception of the piece that crosses the secondary access that goes out to 28.
Well, I don't disagree. I
adding
just
that.
wanna make sure whatever they do, they don't come up with a new numbering or something, because then I got a problem.
I think so.
Can I ask a question? Just,
Sure.
did you look at that plan?
I'm sorry?
Did you look at that plan?
I saw it out in the hall.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
and this is just a question for me. I'm trying to understand more about plans. They left for Walmart attached to the wetland area, like a little L that swung around onto Route 28, so they have some frontage on 28. What would be the purpose of doing that? Why would an engineer do that? And not just, why didn't they just draw that line right over to the lot line? You know what I'm saying?
I can't tell you what was in his mind, whether it had anything to do with the amount of
Land
natural cover or unimproved land that they had to maintain.
That's
I
what
don't
mean.
know. Can't answer your
I just was
question.
wondering what would cause it.
It's unusual to see it, but it doesn't affect either of the parcels.
No, I know, but I was just curious to see.
I
don't
might
have
be
an
able to
answer.
shed a little light on that, and it's secondhand again, because I'm the attorney and not the engineer. But after we had to go table and we're out in the hall, I was able to talk to the client a little bit. And there's two reasons that at least influence this configuration. One is there were road takings, so there was some lost area right here and lost area right there. That then impacted the ability to develop because of the open space requirements. So that's why this got added on, because this was unimportant to Walmart's permits, and they said, if you want some open space, here it is. But yet, Walmart, I think, wanted to still retain some control over the entrance. And that's why there's, if you notice, the entrance is right in there.
Yeah.
So,
It was a road.
But they didn't take it all, they only took part of the entrance.
yeah, I noticed that.
I was thinking if they were gonna take, I thought, first of all, they're taking the entrance so they could control it, but they didn't take it all.
well, I think they're doing that through easements, but not to get too far
Well,
afield.
that's fine, sorry, I just wanted
no, it's okay.
to try to understand more.
And I think those are influencing factors. Like, there may be others, but those are definitely part of what was driving that.
Well, it
So those-
specifically designates that as frontage. That's what concerns me, and whether or not it's something relating to the special permit required certain frontage, but that's not real frontage. I mean, you go.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, but maybe, and I don't know this, but maybe Walmart wanted to retain some frontage on Cranberry Highway. Why, I don't know. They've got, as Mr. Anderson said, they've got plenty on Seth Toby Road.
I would,
So,
I would
mo-
assume that they have a road opening permit from Mass Highway for that secondary entrance, so that
Yes,
may
they
be a
do.
part of it.
That may
But-
reflect their utility access.
Yeah, But the
Gas might
frontage,
have come in that way.
the frontage for Walmart, of course, is on Toby. I mean, the main
I don't know
entrance
what the
is there.
special permit says. I mean, I don't know if there's any condition there.
I don't
And
think.
it
I
seems
don't-
awfully strange to me, and I don't know why.
So can we
They would
get
have
a
needed a Mass Highway permit for that secondary access.
motion
and they
to
probably wanna maintain
endorse
it.
with the aforementioned corrections and submittal of a new Mylar?
In the new Mylar, just to be clear, is gonna have new lot numbers for the two new lots.
Lot 1 and Lot 2, and the interior lines will be taken off the plan,
Right.
okay? And then a
If that
notation.
doesn't affect the liquor license.
But
Yeah,
the lot,
right.
the lot number designation for your lot should be identical to how it was spelled out in the permit for the liquor license.
Yeah, you wanna check that for your
Please. It's hard enough to get it.
Okay.
So I'll make that motion that you just worded, Mr. Chairman. That sounded good.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Abstained?
If you can, check with Scott to see what what the,
I'm gonna call him first thing tomorrow morning.
if they don't have that, have them call Janet
Oh, he
Wilson
wants
in
it.
the Selectmen's office.
Send correctly the first time.
Janet Wilson,
Wilson.
and ask her to pull a copy of the special
Going on
permit
there.
for, to get the actual information of what was written down for the
Okay.
address.
I will, thank you very much, and I understand exactly what you're saying, so I'll make sure. Yeah.
I've been informed by the voice behind the curtain that we're almost out of recording capabilities, so
Thank you very much for
keeping
seeing
you
us
out
through.
at night.
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience.
So if there's nothing further,
Those minutes done?
oh, you can try. You say, what do we got, 2 minutes, Bob?
Minutes in that back.
Oh, you can't discuss it. It's an undiscussable motion.
What is?
Motion to adjourn.
Not that I've been notified.
You can do that anytime you want, during the meeting.
What happened to the Atlantic Boat? Is that coming up?
I don't know.
You gotta make-
That's the first I've seen of it. I don't. Where are those minutes?
There wasn't any in our packets. Just a minute.
They weren't in the packet.
Just a minute.
They might be in this folder here.
Are you gonna take it now?
Don't even start on me.
You gonna take the picture?
Yeah, you can give them this too.
On TV, smile.
What is there, one copy of each?
You know something you missed? There's a lot of arrowheads over there with that new place that's going on.
There's a lot of what?
Arrowheads.
Where?
Yeah, there's a lot of buried bones in there.
What are you leaving that for me? I don't know.
How'd you grab this?
No,
So they can put it in their new
going
casino?
up to Rochester.
Yeah, they have remnants of the Baptiste family tree there.
2 nights in a row. He was going away early.
So moving forward.
Yeah.
What's your pleasure on these minutes? Do you want to review them? Huh?
You're fine?
There's one copy of each. What do you want me to do with it?
Exercise for a guy like you, you know?
What?
Yeah.
Do we have the capability to email these to members so we can review them beforehand?
Did you have that?
No.
That sound good? If we could have these emailed to the members so you can review them beforehand? Yeah.
I have a question for you, George.
Mr. Chairman?
Before you do that, have you, two things. First, have you requested from Serped the 20 hours for any project yet? I know Derek had submitted something for some zoning work. I don't know if David knows about it or not.
I did get an email that some project had been requested,
Okay.
and
You also need to record your name as the planning board, planning representative to Serped. I don't know why, but you're still not listed.
I have record of having done that. I spoke to the people at Serped, and I have documents in my office with the date and everything of when that was done, so.
Do me a favor and call the office, the secretary.
let me know when the
Secretary
next meeting
retired,
is.
about 4 months ago. They've been there for like 20 years. Creates a problem if you request something, there's nothing on file.
And what was the second thing?
That was the two things. One was,
Mr. Reed has a question.
What?
Mr. Reed,
Sure.
you said you have,
If we get a request for a release of bond, if they could just scan the conditions of approval and email them or something, because when you look at the plan for the roads, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, you're looking at these and it's not helpful at all to determine whether or not everything's, not just the physical things, but any other conditions or something on there that we should know about.
When you review them, do you just review the technical aspects of the road construction, or do you look at the overall subdivision?
Well, the
Like conditions of approval?
isn't the surety just for the road construction?
When I look at what I have to do, I go to the file and typically look at the approval to see what it contains, to see if there's anything unique about that particular approval. If there isn't anything specific in there, then I go to the plans and what details show on the plans, and I look at my inspection based on what I see on the plans. Report back on that
and
basis.
you also refer to
You
the.
look at the conditions of approval. I mean, it said you have to have a lantern covenant or something,
If there's something
you check all
specific,
of
I
those.
check those to see if they're there, and if they're not, then I write it up and submit it to you.
So you pull the original approval
Sure.
and just do a comparison, as you're
I
doing
have-
your due
I
diligence.
have no other way of knowing what was expected, so that when I submit some
Yeah.
letter that says it's done, it's
John,
according to the approval.
Make a motion.
Good, that's great.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion?
Not even
I
11.
think we should stay a little bit longer, Paul.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
We got 1 minute.
Meeting adjourned at 10:46. Thank you, Bob.